I'd like to call to order the October 26th regular meeting of the Board of Education. Please rise for the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I seem to make a practice of reading the mission statement. Quiz at 11. We are committed to academic achievement and success for all students in a safe environment. In partnership with families and our community, our mission is to promote confidence, inspire a passion for learning, and prepare our students to become responsible global citizens. Do I have a motion to approve the revised agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So passed, or so carried, whatever the term is. Questions and comments from interested citizens. Kim Laskorsky? Fight your way through.
Good evening. The start of this school year has seen a lot of changes. It is human nature and normal that change is always met with trepidation. Students and parents have voiced positive feedback with the onset of new beginnings district-wide. The students are smiling and parents are being more open and comfortable about sharing their concerns. Working together as a team has always been the goal of our PTA council and any PTA entity. For those, though, that are new to the district or in a new position, whether it be a staff, teacher, administrator, or a PTA council president, we just want to go over a few things to remind you. The PTA council's role, along with any of the PTA building board members, including SEPTA, is to pass on all student and parent concerns in accordance with your district's chain of command. This communication can be done via email or in person. The PTA continues to meet with the cabinet and building administrators on ways to improve and maintain open communication. This is a work in progress, and we are making great strides in a positive way. For the most part, students and parents are encouraged by any PTA representative to speak directly to the person who can address their issues being raised. However, with that said, if the student and parent is not comfortable doing this, then the PTA representative will step in and relay the information brought to them. Questions and/or topics brought from any PTA member are not personal. We're only the messenger. We represent stakeholders who have trusted us to be their voice. There have been changes and directives from higher institutions, such as the New York State Health Department and the State National PTA. Thus, we have new PTA regulations and district rules to comply with. As a PTA group, we bring forth questions asked of us, and we will continue to advocate for all students and parents while being strong advocates for our district. It is our goal to promote communication and support your transparency. We welcome anyone with questions or concerns to address us individually or collectively so we can all be on the same page, which is to support our students and families and make their experiences at Monroe Woodbury positive and successful. And the reason I bring this up tonight is because when we do bring forth stuff, it has been voiced that, well, we are voicing our own personal opinions, and that's not our agenda, and that's not our intention. We're here just to support the families and students and parents.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Thomas Powell?
Right here.
Step right up.
What? You do it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'm doing that.
Figure in.
Well, facilities.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Good
sir.
evening.
My name's Thomas Powell. I'm a resident. I'm a graduate of the school district, 1975. I've lived here for the last over 40 years. I do not understand why 25 to 30 buses on a weekend have to be tour buses, not little buses, tour buses, have to be parked at the middle school to subsidize parking for Woodbury Commons. The damage alone from those 25 to 30 buses is apparent because of the repaving sidewalk. They drive on the sidewalks up there. Nobody's ever around to see how they are parked there when they're driving on the curbs, on the grass. I live in the neighborhood, and it's a pain, it's a pet peeve of mine. All right? These people are all here. They haven't had a contract in 2 years. That money that's being spent to repair the parking lot could be spent on these folks right here. So, I know and somebody told me it was an agreement that the school board made with Woodbury Commons. I find that deplorable because I'm a deplorable, all right? So I'm still, it's mind-boggling how my tax dollars is subsidizing their tour buses, all right? There's plenty of parking for them down in the Harriman train station for these buses. They don't have to be parked on school property. And then when I try and get into the middle school, or it's not Central Valley Elementary School, I get turned away by security guards. That's not right. This is a school facility. Why am I being turned away from enjoying a facility with my nieces and nephews? And, hopefully I'll have grandchildren in a couple of years. But I should not be turned away from the facilities here because they don't want people parking there. They close the gate for the elementary school, all right? And then they staff it with security guards, our security guards. I don't even know who the hell they are, all right? So I find that deplorable.
Thank you. Who will get back to Mr. Powell and when?
Mr. Cahill will.
I can, John.
Well, I'd just like an answer before the Thanksgiving weekend when they'll have 30 or 40 or who knows how many.
Someone will get back to you.
We'll get back to you. Thank you. Appreciate that concern.
You don't have a contract. You don't have a contract.
Yeah, we don't have, why they don't have them.
Well, we should look into that.
We'll look into it.
Look into that. Ray Hodges.
Raymond Hodges, Monroe Woodbury Teachers Association President. The district made a decision to bring attorneys into our current contract negotiations. Who made the decision is immaterial because we find ourselves at a first ever contract impasse at Monroe Woodbury. Why that decision was made is the real question. The partnership between management and labor that evolved through the decades has only strengthened in recent years. Those in leadership before us understood the incredible things we could get done educationally when both sides were strong and working as partners. We had a model here that was the envy of all. Why then would the district tear at the very fabric of this partnership by bringing hired guns to the negotiating table? From Long Island, no less, with no stake or vested interest in our school district, aside from legal fees, and change the long-standing paradigm of stakeholder win-win negotiations and tear at the very fabric of this community. Why wasn't it tried, tested, and proven process, not even given a chance? Negotiations have always been a fundamental responsibility of a central administration that was invested for the long run here at Monroe Woodbury. Was it to insulate some from the process so everything could be blamed on the lawyers, or worse, on the union? Examine the track record of both sides. 6 years ago, the headlines from the Times Herald Record read, Monroe Woodbury Teachers Pact reflects state aid cut, tough times. I was quoted saying, we understand the climate we're in. And this law firm on the payroll? Impasse, mediation, fact-finding are the footprints they leave on school districts. Look online. Perp case M2013-013, East Islip. And it's clear where they want to take this process, right here in our own backyard. We are always prepared to negotiate whenever and wherever possible. But just last week, to our complete dissatisfaction, we learned we're not scheduled again until November 21st. And that if the third mediation needed to occur, that would not happen until January of 2017. If this process moves to a fact finder, yet another outsider would come in with no stake. He or she will yield findings sometime next year, 2017-18. This is insanity. Tonight, we implore the board, remove the lawyers, arbitrators, and interims from this process who have come at the direction of the district and at a price tag to the taxpayers, yet have no permanent stake in the children, no permanent stake in the community, no permanent stake in our district's future and well-being. Bring the long-term stakeholders of the district back to the table, and let's get this done now. Negotiate with labor in a win-win fashion, the proven model of success here at Monroe-Woodbury. Show the public and their children we educate that the district is truly invested in them, not in legal fees. Bring our district back to one of distinction and demonstrate to all of us that the praise you lauded upon us and the workers on opening day was more than just words. Sit across from us. Invest in our school districts and not the lawyers. We beg you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ray. I have a few words, and then we're going to install our student board representative, Daniel Willis, and then we'll take a short break for you guys to get out of here. I have a written statement because, as my wife says, I'm most of the time inappropriate. So I wanted to attempt to be somewhat appropriate and respond to you and to respond to everyone here and everyone who is not here. For years, the Board of Education has maintained a solid working relationship with the Monroe-Woodbury teachers. We all want the same thing, a fair and equitable agreement that protects teachers' interests, considers the needs of our taxpayers, and is sustainable. Formulating a good agreement always takes time. Would we have preferred to have negotiations completed before the old contract expired? Of course. But we recognize that the elements of a good and fair agreement must be carefully sifted and weighted. There have been statements and postings on social media questioning the district's use of lawyers during this collective bargaining process, and we wish to clear up a few inaccuracies. In September 2014, the Monroe-Woodbury Board of Education sent out requests for proposals to hire school district legal counsel services. This team was hired to represent the district in various ways, including, and I quote directly from the RFP, counsel must be able to advise and consult with central administration and the Board of Education in order to plan, present, and review proposals during collective bargaining negotiations and to prepare associated documents as required. Counsel selected may be expected to represent the board at all levels and stages of negotiations as may be required during the process of collective bargaining, unquote. It was always the board's intent to have the chosen firm who serves the district on a monthly retainer to sit at the table during collective bargaining. They have expertise and the time to dedicate to this process. We firmly believe it is in the best interest of our students and taxpayers to have a legal team who objectively guides the nuances of the decisions we collectively make. It is important to us that our teachers feel safe and supported in their roles as educators at Monroe-Woodbury. It is also the board's responsibility to consider the needs of our taxpayers. We will continue to bargain in good faith and hope that our teachers will do the same. That's my, that's our response. We will get there. Watch out, Elsie, I'm going to say something else. We will get there, and this will be concluded, and it will be fair to everyone. That will happen. I promise you that will happen. I appreciate you coming here tonight. This is, you need to advocate as Ray advocates for you, and I appreciate your advocating for the teachers. We value you and all teachers and staff. We honestly do, and we will get there. Please hold your applause. I'm a theater guy. It's, you know, full house and nothing. We would-
Installation. Installation.
Yes, the installation of our student representative to the Board of Education. This year, we passed a proposition in the May election to add a student representative to the Board of Education from the high school. Non-voting member, somebody who is not privy to executive session or confidential information, but somebody who will report to us what's on the minds of the students, good and bad, what they see that we're doing well, and what they see that we're not doing well. Suggestions to change things, suggestions to introduce things to this district that we can help implement. So we'd now like to introduce and install Daniel Willis. Raise your right hand.
Raise your right hand.
Repeat after me. The oath of office, I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of
and the
America
Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of ex officio board trustee
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of ex officio Board of Trustee
of the Monroe-Woodbury Central School District according to the best of my ability.
of the Monroe-Woodbury Central School District to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Right. We'll now take a short break for people to depart if you so choose.
The kids are leaving. Now. I hadn't seen them.
Where's this thing? Oh, yeah.
Right there.
Right. We will continue after that brief recess. No board business was conducted during that brief recess. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of September 7th?
Motion. Oh.
Moved and seconded. Any comments on this? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Reports by Board of Education committees. What do we have? Facilities? You want to mention anything, Mr. Beal?
Policy. You want me to do policy or facility?
But I don't care. Fight amongst yourselves.
I was just not looking to go online. Yeah, we had a policy meeting this week. We're, I'm sorry.
Facilities.
I
We had-
know,
we
I'm
had
like, we
both,
did?
but We did have facilities. We had facilities this week. We're making really good progress on looking at the various buildings. We're going to be looking much closer at several of the buildings in the district, specifically the Harriman dorm, the Harriman, I always forget the name. Center, and this building, the Board of Ed building. So we keep making progress. It's a long-term project. We have some short-term maintenance issues that we'll need to address that have been identified, but overall, the progress is going extremely well.
And the fields have been tended to for
Yeah, we
the
walked-
winter.
We walked the fields today. We have ordered quite a few winter tarps. I think Patrick can go into that, but they will be covered shortly. There is an extensive plan in place, a multi-year plan to keep all of the fields in a much, much better condition, and we're already seeing one of the fields that we walked today, Field 13, is already looking significantly better. So we're making a lot of progress, and I don't know if Patrick has anything to add to that.
And this is not the long-term
No,
solution.
this
This
is
is
short-term.
just the fact that the fields were so
We expect the parts
dreadful.
that have been purchased to make a significant difference in the fields.
Yep. Did you want to add to that, Patrick? or-
I think Don touched on most of the big items. I had asked Bill Blosser, the facilities director, to just kind of lay out a little progress report, so I could just touch on a few things. Field 13, we shut that down. That was the field we weren't going to use for an extended period of time. We've added 100 tons of topsoil, reseeded the field 2 times this year. We did aeration and irrigation of the field throughout the summer and the fall. And we were talking about installing the blankets on the field, so it should be in really good shape in the spring. Football, after the season, we're going to reseed, aerate, and apply winter turf blankets to parts of the field. I could go on like that, but we've talked to some professionals in this area, and we're trying to up our game, if you will, in the area of field maintenance.
Good. Thank you. Chris, policy?
Policy, we had a few meetings this month. We are no longer going to do the second readings as we've been doing them, first and second readings, as we approve the minutes here at the board. We're going to do the first readings, gives the public time to look at the agenda and see if there's anything that they want to give any input or if there's any issues with the policy. And then the next meeting, we'll do the final second reading and approve it for the board. The first policy that we did was 7131. It considers homeless children in our district. It's pretty much the same as it was. We added a few regulations and criteria for there. We added the dispute resolution process, which means, if we prove that someone is not homeless, we can go back and, get retribution for that. The second policy is 7132, administration of non-resident students. That one, there was a few things that we changed. A major criteria there is that we are asking for a check when you sign it. If you're a person in our district and you have signed a contract to buy a house in our district, but you're not actually in the district yet, you now have to give a check. It's an important factor. I'll read it to you. Is a check, certified bank check of money order made payable to the Monroe Woodbury Central School Districts in the amount equal to 2/10 of the yearly tuition for the non-resident student. Just another way for us to keep track of who's really in our district and who's really not in the district,
Right.
and who's trying to get away with, maybe having someone in our district that's not really there.
Yeah.
So that's really the major change. The third one is academic intervention services. It's just the same policy we reviewed, maybe a few wording change. And the last one is 7316, which is the use of timeout rooms, physical restraints, and adversaries. That I'm going to let our Director of Special Ed, Karen Jordan, if she would want to give a little input on, because some people... There you
Is
are.
she here? Oh, there she is.
Yes, please.
Please.
That's the last policy we did so far, and we'll continue next month with, there'll be more.
So perfect. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak to each of you this evening. So not only did did we have to develop this policy, but it really is the development of our programs within the Monroe-Woodbury Central School District. We have developed 3 therapeutic support programs within our district. We have programs at Smith Clove, Central Valley, and the middle school. And within our program to support our children, we found the need to also establish recovery rooms. Although the policy states timeout rooms, we call them recovery rooms. The purpose of these rooms is to really assist kids when they are becoming dysregulated in order to really successfully move through their behavior intervention plans and resume their education within their setting, within their classroom setting. This is solely for our students with disabilities, and it is very carefully regulated through a behavior intervention plan.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Thank you. Are you?
Yes, I'm done.
2 other things. All our policies are online, and the public can review the revisions, the new policies. And again, we automatically did a second reading at the same time as the first reading, and as Chris pointed out, some members of the public said, hey, we are interested in many of these policy changes, and that's giving us no time to review them. So, and they're absolutely correct. So we're changing our procedure.
Can I jump in to just say
Yes.
one thing? I do want to speak a little bit about residents and the term resident. You can attend Monroe-Woodbury schools if you reside in Monroe-Woodbury. You cannot attend our schools if you reside somewhere out of the district. That is not a Monroe-Woodbury law. That is school law. And the purpose of that is because school districts are funded by taxpayers, and you should attend the schools in which you reside. So there have been times that I, as a superintendent, and I am required to do this, if I understand that someone, a student is attending our school but does not reside here, I am obligated by law to investigate that. And what I mean by investigating is we hire someone who goes out and sees and checks on the address that you have given us and verifies that you, in fact, live there. If you don't live there, I will write you a letter that states that you will need to take your child and attend the school district in which you reside. And the word reside means, it doesn't mean if you own property in the school district. It means where you lay your head at night. So if your parents own property in Monroe-Woodbury, but you live, as an example, you live in Cornwall, then you need to go to schools in Cornwall and not Monroe-Woodbury. And again, the reason we do that is because our resources come from our taxpayers. And it's very important for all of us to make sure that the students who attend our schools live here. So I just wanted to be clear that that is not a Monroe-Woodbury law, that is an education law.
And rental is residing.
Correct. It's wherever you lay your head at night. That's the actual terminology that they use. So I just wanted to make sure that people understand that this is really, as I said before, this is state law. Thank you.
Also, the New York State School Boards Association has for a couple of years been advising us on policy changes. But we've done a little research and would like to rely now on our slightly out of favor at the moment attorneys, Ingerman and Smith, who are advising us on policy changes as well as everything else. Audit Committee, Michael.
Okay, it won't be as exciting as everybody else's speeches so far, but we'll get through it.
Good.
So the Audit Committee met on October 11th to discuss the 2015-2016 financial statements. We met with our outside auditors and partner, Gary Theodore, to review everything. We were provided draft copies of the financial statements, the management letter, along with summary financial, budgetary, and other highlights during the year for the district. The external auditors are responsible for expressing an opinion on the financial statements based on their audit work. The district received an unqualified opinion, which means that the auditors believe the company's financial statements are sound and free of material misstatements. Such an opinion basically states that the auditors feel the district followed all accounting rules appropriately and that the financial reports are an accurate representation of the district's financial condition. Some of the highlights from the meeting, just in regards to the management letter, the auditors noted no transactions entered into by the district during the year for which there was a lack of authoritative guidance and consensus, and that all significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period. The auditors also did not encounter any significant difficulties in dealing with the management team while completing the audit. The auditors stressed what a great job the finance team did during the process, and the level of transparency was greatly appreciated. Any audit findings had no or issues were not material. From the financial statements, just a couple of things worth mentioning. The year-over-year increase in the district general fund, restricted fund balance, basically the reserves, was approximately $4 million, up from approximately $7 million to $11 million. The general fund total expense and encumbrances were approximately $5 million under budget, reflecting a budget accuracy of 96.4%. The general fund total revenues were greater than budgeted by approximately $654,000 due to an increase in some miscellaneous items. And there was $4.7 million of federal money was received for special education programs and school lunch assistance. Just some budgetary highlights that we discussed. Based on tax levy limits, we assume the property tax cap will continue to limit and constrain local resources of the district funding for the foreseeable future. And just by way of comparison, we had a budget increase of 2.99% for 2015-2016 and an increase of 2.21% for 2016 and 2017. The tax levy increase of 2.5% was for 2015 and 2016, and an increase of 1.15% for 2016 and 2017. We also discussed how health costs will continue to outpace inflation and continue to be a cost driver for the district. We have been forewarned about a double-digit increase in premium rates for the 2017-2018 fiscal year. And just on other matters, the school lunch fund ended the year with a positive fund balance of approximately $165,000 and had earnings of $208,000. So in conclusion, the audit committee recommends the board ratify the 2015-2016 audit financial statements. I'd also just like to commend Patrick and his team. They did a wonderful job. Presentation was excellent, and great job.
Yes, thank you. The auditor was impressed with the team, and we always say thank you, Patrick, but he realizes that actually everybody else does the work. No, he has a good team. And it goes down to the buildings and the principals presenting your budgets last year and taking ownership of your buildings. It's very helpful, and it helps save us money and put the money where we need to put it. So I appreciate everybody's efforts in that. Any other comments or thoughts? That's it. That's it for committee reports. The curriculum 3 to 8 assessments presentation by Dr. Hassler. You lost your power. Okay.
I'm going to be here for a while, so I'm going to need...
Please don't.
Yeah, no.
Please, someone pull the plug if we need
Right.
to at some point.
No. That's fine. 25 words or less. That's fine, Eric.
I mean, I have like 4 presentations.
Pat Spargoff?
Luciota reincarnated.
No, I'll take that as a compliment.
Okay.
It wasn't meant as, I mean, yes.
Yeah. Mrs. Wren here, and Mrs. Terlecki, and Mr.
Nobody wants to join you.
They're not.
They all.
Hey, come on, you guys. Yo, come on. No, come on.
They look so
wanna be a
happy
part of
coming
it.
up and sitting up there near you. He took
You
a
were just
bath
thinking
today.
about all of your hard work, and now this is like,
I don't want to sit next to Laura.
I want to sit next to Joe.
You need one more seat? Grab it.
I don't want any of you up.
And Kristen. come on, Christopher ran
Especially
here,
you,
come on.
Dolores.
Yes, come on over.
Those kids are smart, they left.
Yeah. They know. The going gets tough and the tough get going.
Your mom.
Thank you, Eric. That was great.
You're very welcome. News at 11.
Turn down the lights.
Who's on the line? Our facilities man.
Don't go to sleep.
Perfect.
Switches.
Perfect.
You get a test after this.
Gold star.
Have you ever been to a board meeting before? Okay, then you know what we're talking about.
Okay. Good evening. I'd like to thank the Board of Education for the opportunity to present our grades 3 through 8 assessment scores for the 15-16 school year. I'd like to begin by thanking the administrators that are sitting up here with me for their work in not only supporting the staff and students in their assessments, but also in going through the data and reviewing our results in order to best support our students. Seated with me are Brian Giudice, principal of Pine Tree, John Casti, principal of the middle school, Dolores Terlecki, principal from CV, Joe Cotto from North Main, and Kristen Rand here. Thank you. Our director of educational support. Yes. Although the state hasn't released our official 2016 report cards, which is the data from last year, for this evening we're presenting data that is available to the public. At the conclusion of the presentation is a link to the state education website where you can get all of our various assessment results. That also includes our Regents results that I'll be presenting later on during the school year. So, every year at the beginning of this presentation, I talk first about what has remained the same regarding the 3 through 8 assessments and what's new. I think everybody's aware that there have been a variety of changes that have taken place over the years, some more popular than others. And what I'd like to do is sort of give the current status of the 3 through 8 assessments. What has remained the same this year is that the students continue to take the assessments over multiple days. There still continue to be field test questions embedded into the actual assessments in addition to standalone field tests. The tests consist of both multiple choice questions and extended response questions. They're still based in Common Core standards. They're in year 4. Assessments were still under considerable scrutiny by a variety of different parties, and we are only still given access to a portion of the assessments. We continue to view the assessments as one tool out of many to identify student growth and determine how to best support them. The state, once again, as I mentioned, only released a portion of the assessments. Last year, they said that they released 50% of the assessment questions. This year, they released 75% of the questions that counted towards student scores. Now remember, there's also field test questions that are embedded that they also don't release. So the assessments that we see posted on the State Ed website only represent about 75% of the questions that actually count towards the student score. So there's about 25% of the questions that we don't have access to at this time. The assessments are still not allowed to be part of a student's record, and we're still working to try to reduce the stressors that are associated with the assessments due to time constraints and various other factors. Some items that are new. Up until last year, we were able to compare various assessment years because of the population of students that took the exam. However, starting with last year's presentation, you may recall, it was difficult to present the presentation in comparison to the previous year's results because last year, for the first time, we had about 50% of our kids not take the exam. So it's difficult to compare cohort to cohort when you lose half of your population that's taking the exam. And we can't necessarily say that the sampling of students who took the exam is a representation of the entire school district. Questar Assessment has replaced Pearson and is responsible for the construction of last year's forms and guidance materials associated with the assessments. There is currently a moratorium on using assessments for teacher scores due to APPR. As presented during our AIS presentation at a previous Board of Education meeting, there's a change in the way that we use cut scores. Previously, the state established cut scores for each assessment at every grade level, at which we are required to provide AIS to students. Now the state is saying that based upon certain established cut scores by the state, we're required to review students for possible inclusion of AIS. So the responsibility has been placed on the school district of whether or not the students actually receive those services. And we need to have multiple measures for identifying students for AIS. Finally, last year's assessments for the first time were untimed. Previously, students were given a time frame within which they had to complete the assessment. Students with modifications were given their modifications based upon the time frames that were given by the State Ed Department. Last year, they decided that the assessments were going to be untimed. Students were to be given as much time as they needed in order to complete them, as long as they were productively working, is the language that they gave to us. The time frames, however, remain fairly consistent to what the time frames were previously. Even though the assessments were untimed, for planning purposes, the state issued us a list of anticipated time frames for what they thought that the students would take the exam. Here's what they issued us. For ELA, third graders and fourth graders were estimated to have taken between 60 and 70 minutes. Fifth grade through eighth grade for the ELA exam, 80 to 90 minutes per day. Math, third grade and fourth grade for the first two portions, the first 2 days of the exam, 50 to 60 minutes. Fourth grade for the third day, 80 to 90 minutes. Fifth grade through eighth grade, sessions 1 and 2 were 70 to 80 minutes, and for session 3, it was 80 to 90 minutes. One of the questions that we asked during that time period was there was a possibility of a student taking much longer to take the exam. What about things like lunch? The state issued information saying that we were allowed to give students the opportunity to be able to take a break from the assessment to eat their lunch. They allowed the students to receive a supervised lunch break, and they were allowed to speak during that lunch break. However, they had to be advised not to be able to speak about the assessment itself. They were not to be in the main population for that break. So, how many of our kids actually took the exam? Here is the history of the last 4 years of assessments. 2014-2015, last year, was the first year where we saw a significant increase in refusals. Last year for ELA, we had 55% of our students take the ELA exam, and we had about 49% of our students take the math exam. This year, we had about 53% of our students take the ELA exam, so we dropped about 2%. And last year, we had 48.5, so about 49% of our students take the math exam. But again, one thing I'd like to note regarding math, the 8th grade students who take the algebra regions do not sit for the 8th grade math assessment also. So the population of kids required to take the assessment is less if that population of kids, we have a little over 100 kids who take the algebra regions. So we had about, I broke it out in terms of refusals versus students who were actually absent or medically excused. For the 15-16 school year, we had about 47% of our students refuse to take the ELA exam, and about 51% of our students refused to take the math exam, which was a slight increase over the previous year. So these are our ELA results for the 14-15 school year. Again, we had just under 50% of our students not participate in this exam. These were our results for 14-15, 2 years ago. And these are our results for the 15-16 school year. Just as a note, when the state report card comes out, we are compared in relation to how the entire state performs. We're also, which is the blue line on this graph. However, for contextual purposes, we'd like to compare us to our local region, which is Orange County and the Mid-Hudson region, but also we compare ourselves to Westchester and Rockland County. Monroe-Woodbury is the purple, and the New York State is blue, and they have the various other regions that are in there. For the math exam, again, this is 2 years ago, the 14-15 school year, same representation. and this is our performance for the 15-16 school year. Again, the comparison against New York State, Orange County, Mid-Hudson, Westchester, and Rockland County.
Eric, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are the other districts, do they have greater refusal rates? That's why their numbers are so low, or is it just that they're just low?
We, similar to last year, we sort of found ourselves kind of in the middle of the refusal sort of range. Some school districts found themselves quite a bit higher. Some school districts found themselves quite a bit lower. We were sort of right in the middle. However, I will tell you that more school districts last year for the 15-16 school year saw a pretty significant increase, whereas we remained fairly flat. I mean, we increased by a couple of percent. There were quite a few school districts that saw double-digit increases in the number of people who refused, similar to the jump that we had from 13-14 to 14-15. So we sort of had the refusal movement hit us a little bit sooner than some of the other school districts did. So we found for the 15-16 school year that they kind of caught up to us in terms of the number of students that were refusing. But again, it's hard to say that the reason why they're lower is because of the number of refusals that they have, because you don't really know who's going to refuse to take the assessment, and that's the reason why I said it's kind of hard to compare year to year, because it's not like we're selecting the students to take the exam to know that it represents a cross-section of all student abilities. The refusal movement is a factor that we don't have the control over. So
Can I just jump into that
Sure.
and say one more thing? The other thing is that it can be inconsistent. So one year a child doesn't take the test, and then the following year they do take the test. So again, you're not, as Eric said, you really don't have a clear cohort of students that you can identify, because it's a mix of students. Did you have a question?
It's also interesting how each one of the schools take a dip in 8th grade.
Right.
It's the same.
Yeah,
very
and that's
interesting.
in the end, and that's sort of one of the things that, despite the number of kids that didn't take the exam, we still do try to look at the data to see how we're falling. And one of the things is what you're looking at, where you could still see sort of a general trend with regards to that, which there could be a variety of factors. I mean, sometimes from year to year, if you talk to a classroom teacher, they say, wow, this year's assessment at 7th grade was particularly difficult. So that's also a factor in that. And obviously, that level of difficulty is something that impacts that entire grade level across the state. So you may see a trend in that way due to the type of passages or the types of questions that are on particular assessments.
Because English is going the opposite direction.
Right. Right.
They changed the way they score a person who opts out from previously.
Right now, they are not counted as tested. And what that means is, in order to get a valid score, you have to take the entire exam. So even if a student comes into school on day one, sits and takes the exam, goes home and says to their parent, 10 kids in my class refuse to take the exam, I don't want to take the test tomorrow, and then refuses for the last 2 days of the exam, that goes down as not having a valid score, basically. So they would not get calculated into this. Ultimately, this rate is the proficiency rate of the numbers of 3s and 4s out of the students who have valid scores. Yes?
Yeah, I'm looking at it from a math teacher's point of view, and I'm thinking that maybe there's a huge discrepancy in the curriculum that's taught in 6th grade compared to 7th and 8th, where they're preparing them more for algebra.
Sure. I'll kind of speak to that. One thing that jumped out at us last year when I presented this October 2015 were the 3rd grade scores. This was 3rd grade math, where we only had, out of the students who tested, ELA, I apologize, ELA. We had 23.4 of our students test proficient on the ELA exam, which was, in comparison to any of the other areas that we compare ourselves to, the lowest. Now, normally you sort of take a look at that and, if this was 2012, 2011, you look at that and say, wait a second, what's going on here? Fast forward 1 year, that group is now in 4th grade. And even though they're lower, there's a little bit of a different trend with that particular cohort of students. But again, it's hard to say definitively, is it the population of kids in that particular grade level who happen to take the exam? Because the trend on the performance of the other school districts really doesn't follow the same exact trend as Monroe Woodbury. And again, for us, later on in the presentation, I talk about the way that we use the data. We have data teams in every single school. And in the end, they sit down and they can drill down to individual student performance to try to determine, what's at play here. Again, it becomes a little bit difficult to make generalizations when you have an unpredictable population, which is half of your population, not sitting down to
And also
take the
when you're
assessment.
not seeing all of the test questions.
Correct.
But also, you have the third graders from the year prior that was so low, and then the students coming in from second to third, they're at 48. That's
Now, this
high.
year's third grade tested at 48%, correct?
But that's a different group of kids.
That's a different cohort of kids, right. Last year's 23%
But you
cohort
had
is,
also more people that opted out.
right,
That's interesting.
right.
It's a lot of variables.
It really
Yes.
is.
Dan?
Got two questions. So what are the students doing that are not taking the test?
They are, according to state regulation, they're allowed to read a book.
Okay, so in theory, they would be missing like a day of classroom instruction.
Yeah, in the end, every year we try to determine, we send out a letter in advance saying, if you plan on refusing, please let us know so that way we can plan accordingly and determine how many kids we're actually talking about. Once we realize the number of kids that we're not going to be taking the test, we plan to have a variety of different locations throughout the school for kids to go to, because one of the things that we were concerned with is if you have students who are going to take the exam, we want to make sure that the testing environment is one for them to not be disrupted, to sit down and take the exam. So the students who are not taking the exam are taken out. They sit down according to state regulation. They are permitted to be able to sit and read a book. The same as a student, once they complete the assessment is taken from them, and they can sit and they can read a book.
And then the second question, so did you receive any feedback from parents of why the sudden drop, basically why people decided to get out?
We've received all sorts of different feedback. The feedback ranges from concerns with regards to the usage of the assessments being linked to teacher scores, concerns about the validity of the Common Core, concerns about Pearson, who was previously the company hired by the State Education Department to make the exams. Again, I think that the state is trying to be responsive to some of these items. That's the reason why at the beginning I kind of share some of the insights about modifications that they make. They got rid of Pearson, and they brought in a new company to make the assessments. It's hard to even pin it on one specific thing. There's lots of different items that, that people are concerned with related to this.
Lack of trust.
Lack of trust.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
The other piece is that we do internal delays because we need every workable space in our buildings and every staff member to help administer these assessments. So the kids that are refusing and they're reading a book as opposed to taking a test. They're not missing instruction because it's during that test time. Once the testing sessions are over, everyone goes back to their classrooms and they continue instruction.
Right. In the end, particularly at the elementary level, their classroom teacher is the one who is proctoring the exam. So it's not like there's general class instruction that's going on and the kids are sent someplace else. Their classroom teacher remains behind to actually administer to whatever remaining kids are sitting and taking the exam.
So basically, the data's not that helpful until we get a little more.
The most help that it provides us is down to the individual student. So any student who tests, we're able to get, later on I talk about what do we do with the data. We use the data to drill down to how are our kids doing? If these are the standards that the state is saying to us, your students need to be able to do this, and these are the annual assessments that they create for our students, any student who takes the exam, that's one of the things that we look at to measure how they're doing. It's hard to use the data for this purpose, but there are still uses for those who sit down and take the exam.
With the removal of the cut scores,
Yep.
Imposed by the state, and we define students who need AIS. Has there been a change in the volume of students who are receiving it or have been recommended for it?
We have, that regulation that came out didn't have a huge impact on us because even though the previous cut scores required kids to be in AIS. Some kids we would put in AIS, if we weren't overly concerned about them, we basically put them in as Tier 1 students and we monitored them. So they were officially in AIS, but they may not necessarily be receiving services. The students who we're really concerned about, who are our Tier 2 and our Tier 3 students, they were already identified through multiple measures. We also administer benchmark assessments in math and ELA within the school district, so it's not exclusively, even before they shifted the regulations around, the state assessment wasn't the only tool that we used to identify kids for AIS. So for us, really, we basically just continued what we do.
We were ahead of them.
Right. We continue. Right.
Do we have the ability to compare students that took the test last year and took it this year so that we can measure that data? Because if you mix in all the rest of it.
Right, and that's what I mean by we would drill down to individual students, and if there happens to be a student who has taken the assessment over multiple years, certainly that's something that we look into. Sure. You had asked for something before.
To just send it back one more. Oh, no, okay. No, I wanted the ELA, wherever you are.
Yeah.
Why is the Orange County average only dealing with the 6th grade? How come the red isn't going any further?
It overlaps.
They overlap with each other.
It continues with the Mid-Hudson.
Right.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's co-married.
Orange County and Mid-Hudson, correct.
Terminus with it.
Oh, okay,
Right.
thank you.
Right.
That's $1 word.
Co-terminus. I like that. I'm going to write that down.
Thank you. Safety word.
How do we prepare our students for the assessments? Last year when I did this presentation, the first bullet was worded differently. The first bullet was worded as alignment with the Common Core standards. The curriculum that we used last year for our students was a Common Core aligned curriculum. However, the Common Core are currently under review through the State Education Department. The State Ed Department has a new draft set of New York State ELA and math standards available for public view on their website. They're accepting feedback through November 14th. Once they receive feedback from the public, they're going to review them again. And ultimately, we anticipate a new set of ELA and math standards that we're going to have to realign our curriculum to. So when I say to you previously that we aligned it to the Common Core, we did align it to the Common Core. Now we're kind of in a holding pattern to see what the next wave of standards are going to be that are coming from State Ed for us to make adjustments in our curriculum.
Isn't it great to have things change every year? Don't you just love it?
I think they're trying to
That was a
adjust.
rhetorical question.
They're trying to fine-tune
Right.
the error maybe that they rolled out. You know, I said years ago this will probably die of natural causes, and it's
Right.
probably going that direction.
And again,
Hopefully.
that's honestly the reason why I begin this presentation with what's new and what remains the same, because every year there are sort of new pieces and new elements to this that are noteworthy.
Can I just add a note to that?
Sure.
I think one of the worst things that the State Education Department did was their rollout of the Common Core.
Oh, absolutely.
They
It should be in
began
K.
when some students were in 6th grade,
Yep.
and they had previously taught something different, and now these children that are now in high school have had various forms of math, the way that it's been taught. So it would have been a better idea to start it in kindergarten.
Absolutely.
And roll it out.
Absolutely.
But,
That would make
but they,
sense.
But they
That's why they didn't do
continue
it.
to refine it instead of saying, you know what, I think the best thing that we should do is start at kindergarten and roll and move that up as the students move into 1st and 2nd grade and go through 12th grade. So I feel, I met with a parent this week with Mr. Kravitz, whose child is a junior in high school and is really struggling to pass the math regions because she's had multiple courses, and she's just not sure which course she should study for to pass the regions. And I think that's unfair, which has great implications on our students if they don't pass their regions exams.
Well, it's no doubt it should have been rolled out in kindergarten. Think of the children who have special needs who are in the middle of learning a specific type of way, and then they have to learn this. And if the gen ed is having difficulty,
yes,
imagine children who have special needs have difficulties. So-
Part of the challenge also was that the rollout of the Common Core was also attached to a curriculum that the state was putting out. They put out ELA and math modules that were Common Core aligned that they said to school districts, here's a great tool for you to use to be able to make sure that you're covering the Common Core within your school system. And in addition to the Common Core being scrutinized, those modules were also very, very scrutinized because there were a lot of elements that the state put into the modules, into the curriculum, that weren't ultimately incorporated into the assessments. So now, 2 years removed, you have many school districts that are backpedaling on the usage of the modules when originally there was a mad rush to, you couldn't go on any publisher to get any of the literature that was linked to the modules because they were sold out everywhere, because everybody was scrambling trying to get their hands on the literature in order to be able to teach the modules. So it's been interesting.
It's been interesting, but I want to say that as the board, we were supporting the teachers and basically allowed them to be autonomous as well.
And
Even though, everyone was a little nervous of, we have to do it this, we have to do it that way. Our students, when we saw the state assessment after the first year, they weren't too bad.
Sure.
They weren't too off base.
And I think one of the things that we're really trying to return to is, what do we fundamentally believe is what kids need to learn as educators. And Monroe-Woodbury has historically had even a higher standard than any state assessment or state level standard that has been put out there. And we sort of found ourselves in a pattern of making adjustments on the fly as stuff was coming out from the state, and we sort of are now trying to return to what do we believe fundamentally as educators, and hopefully it's minor tweaking that we need to do when new standards are coming out because we're already ahead of the game. Right.
Eric, I remember last year there was some talk that there was going to be some sort of penalties for the schools that had high numbers of opting out. Did that ever happen, and do you hear that same sort of talk for this year?
Many people.
We are required to test 95% of our students. Part of our report card says that in order to make adequate yearly progress, you have to have 95% of your students test. Because the belief is that if you have less than 95%, you have certain populations of students that you are getting to not test to positively impact your overall results. Now, what they've done is they've made adjustments on, rather than calculating it on an annual basis, they've used a historical approach of, well, maybe you didn't have 95% this year, but you're averaging this much, so we'll sort of, you get a pass under safe harbor, basically, is what they call it. And I think that because the numbers are increasing, it's very hard for them to, because, one of the things that we've said when, I say to the building principals, we ask parents to communicate to us, send us emails, send us notes in with your kids. We keep every single one. And we say to them, come down. If you feel that there's, improprieties happening, you can come on down. You can sift through the binder of every single note and every single email that we've received from every single parent. And, there's nothing up our sleeves.
But this issue isn't only Monroe-Woodbury, it's statewide.
Correct. Right. Right.
I think it's nationwide.
And I think, in the end, the state is trying to be responsive. And I think the question that remains is, do people feel that they are being responsive enough?
Have they called out any school districts and actually wanted to check and see, including ours?
I know that there have been school districts in our area that the state has shown up on the day of the assessment. And they come in and they want to see what it is that you're doing. And, for us, we have nothing to hide. You can come on in.
Are there any?
That's not an invitation, though.
Words right out of my mouth.
Any predictions for this year in terms of number of students opting out? Are we seeing a leveling of the trend, or?
I think that there's so much going on right now. I think, you have this whole new standards thing that's going to be coming out that, you never really know. I was talking to a group of teachers the other day, and I said to them, they were asking me what I thought was going to happen. And, we're encouraging people to get online and give feedback and everything else. And the question is going to be, because for the first time they're saying we have teachers at the table. We had one teacher in Monroe Woodbury who actually had the opportunity to participate in the review of the ELA standards. So they have teachers at the table, and the question is going to be, they're getting feedback. Are they going to truly be responsive to it? A current trend that we're watching right now is computer-based testing, which is sort of another layer of this. The 16-17 school year, for the first time, they are offering school districts the opportunity to choose one grade level within the district to test online, entirely online. Last year, for the first time, they offered computer-based testing of field tests. We opted to participate in the computer-based field test because it was an opportunity for us to, if we're going to be required, they're saying by, I think it's 2020, am I right, Kristen, 2020? 2020, every student is going to take the test online. So we saw the field testing as an opportunity to, since it's field testing and not something that has a direct impact on students, we opted to participate in computer-based testing. There were lots of challenges that went along with it. There's a lot of logistical things because it's brand new that we have to work out. There's also making sure that our infrastructure is able to support hundreds and thousands of kids simultaneously now jumping online and taking the assessment.
How many students were included in the field test?
How many did we end up testing? Yeah, well, yes. Last year we were able to choose one grade level that participated. We actually had more kids. I think we ended up with more kids that participated in the field test that didn't refuse the field test. Again, I think the rationale was this isn't something that is sort of hanging over my child, and it was one test, and it wasn't an entire assessment. It was just one instructional block. So I think people felt a little bit more comfortable participating. But an issue with this year's test is, for the first time, they are allowing the actual state assessment, one grade level, for districts to choose for it to be administered on the computer. However, for us, we send our assessments we contract through BOCES, through a company, to score our assessments. And there are a lot of questions now about whether or not they're going to allow districts to be able to do that, or whether they're going to force you to score locally through a BOCES or whatever. And because they can't answer questions on how those online assessments are going to be scored, people are very concerned about participating in that. In the end, we've talked about opting to keep it exactly as is. But again, I think it's one of those things where things are changing so quickly. I think for a lot of people that instills, like you said, a lack of trust. And, rather than, I think most people want to see them to hit pause, take a break, reconvene, and then start from fresh, rather than just tweaking and putting Band-Aids on things.
It's a good model if you're a commissioner, because you can't be judged against last year's thing. If you change it every year, then you don't have to worry about doing worse.
Well, here's what I can tell you. The state,
new standard.
It's different.
I believe that statewide last year, 20% was the actual number of kids that refused to take the exam statewide. I think this year it increased to 22%. So what the state is saying, because even though we no longer link the student scores to teacher scores, the state still calculates them and issues them. So they're basically still saying that we're getting enough data to be able to continue moving forward. Okay.
So what is the thought behind doing it online? What's a pro and what's a con to that?
We have increased in recent years the number of assessments that we administer internally, like teachers administer some tests online and things like that. But one of the criticisms is, first of all, a 3-day assessment plus or minus an hour a day for an 8-year-old is a non-traditional manner for us to assess students. That's not the way the teachers do it on a daily basis. And one of the questions is, having a third grader sit down for that duration of time is equally as non-traditional. Is that score going to be truly representative of the child's in ELA ability to be able to demonstrate proficiency of a set of standards, and similarly in math? And I think that that's the purpose of them doing field testing, to be able to compare how are the kids, because they're not fully rolling it out, they're doing it as a school district. You can choose one grade level to administer it. I think that they'll sort of compare the students who take it on paper versus the students who take it on the computer. How do the results compare? Because one of the things that I've heard, I mean, this is still literally, you get an email with an update on where they're at currently with this. I've heard that they basically are taking this paper assessment and entering it into the computer, and the kids sit down and take it. And again, you have lots of questions about a child's, ability to manipulate manipulate a mouse and scroll through the screen rather than sitting down with the paper and flipping back and forth between the pages. And it's
Try to get the answer
correct.
some other way.
Correct. And that's, for us, is just like how I said earlier, that if we have a population of kids who are refusing, the kids who are still taking the exam, we want to make sure that they are given the opportunity to be able to be as successful as they can. We're also using that same perspective with regards to the computer-based testing. We want to make sure that if not for the field test, for the actual assessment, we want to have our kids sit down, and if they choose to take the test, we want to make sure that the results that they get are their best opportunity to demonstrate success. And when there's questions about the online testing or whatever, we're very cautious about that.
Well, we also know that colleges do that too.
Correct,
So
yep.
we're probably prepping them for
Right.
that situation as well. So
Right.
who knows what the rhyme or reason is.
I don't remember where I was. So
I think you're done.
I'm sure that I probably covered, we reviewed Iron Math and subgroup performance and...
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, great.
We have questions.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
so much. You guys are
Thank you.
fantastic.
We're going to take another short break. Harry is departing for Buffalo for the NYSBA convention. He has
Shuffling off the buffalo.
what is it, a limo, a private jet?
And look at his face.
All the above.
That's what Rockland's
He's a board member in Rockland.
Did you want to, can I ask a question? Do you want to, before we do that, did you pause? Could we move Harry's stuff up
Yes,
right
we
now at the moment so that Harry can have this done and we can approve it? And Leah, can you do that?
Give that to Harry.
Yes.
Those are the
I
two
can't say that.
restaurants you need to
Someone-
go
Motion to revise the agenda.
Duff's is better.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Duff's is better.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor to further revise the agenda? So carried.
Harry can get out of here.
So Harry can get out of here. Can you please give us your personnel report?
Thank you for moving the items on the agenda so that I can depart. For those of you who have participated in some of the committee-level interviews, you'll know that one of my favorite first questions deals with having the candidates give a sticky note version of their background and why they might be the best candidate for the position. So I'm giving you a sticky note version of the personnel items. We have 24 categories with many, many items within each category. And they range from resignations and retirements to appointments for a variety of positions, coaches, chair people for 504 committees, lead evaluators, classified and certified appointments, and so on. So I'd ask that the board move all of those items, and then once that's done, anyone who's being appointed to a new position, and we have several in the audience, if they would stand, introduce themselves in the position that they are being appointed to.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions on personnel? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Thank you. So those, yeah. familiar faces, but new positions. Nate, you want to introduce yourself and your new position?
I'm Nate Peterson, and I will be the interim assistant principal at North Main.
Andre?
Andre Rudiak, I'm going to be assistant director of engineering.
Two wonderful additions to the team, and with that, I will depart.
Right, we don't need a break, do we? No, we can. He can just
Maybe a
go,
bathroom?
right?
I
We want a little break? All right.
Can I have a 2-minute break?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, really.
2 minute, 45-second break.
Exactly.
That was a big post-it note.
Everybody, please take your seats. We're going to resume.
Go to Frank at the high school.
Again?
Yes.
Sugar rush.
Okay.
Not Hassler, Ken.
I thought we were done. You got a bad.
No, he's not. He thinks he's there, but he's not.
We're changing things up again.
You switch me?
Yeah.
Always. Always.
We
Always.
have, maybe we have a motion to once again revise the agenda.
Yeah, motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. We are now going to move to adjourn. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to move to item
23.
Item 23, business and financial with Patrick.
Yeah, so I would ask for approval of the items under business and financial. So these would be our standard reports, monthly financial reports, our budget status, revenue status, our transfer report, check register, and the investment of funds report. I'll just add a quick note to that. We've changed the format a little bit with that. The old format was designed more for CDs, and so we tweaked the format. I think it's a little more comprehensive. In the past, we just showed the general fund. So we're now showing all the funds, all the accounts. We're identifying the interest rates. So give me some feedback on that, if you like that change or not. We have two donations. $1,100 from Target's Heroes and Helpers program to be used by the district's social workers for the benefit of students, and $1,635 from Music Boosters to the Monroe Woodbury Music Program for the purchase of an acoustical band shell. We have two items that we're declaring obsolete, two buses from 2002-2003, one with in excess of 100,000 miles, the other in excess of 143,000 miles. And let's see, I'm going to skip the resolution for the audit report, go down to contracts, two contracts to approve for essentially special ed related services with the Holistic Learning Center and the Community Education Center. And I'm going to bop back to the resolution to accept the 2015-16 audit report and management letter. And Michael did an excellent job of summarizing the audit report and the audit committee's findings. The only thing I would add to that is, I'd like to publicly, you all thanked me, and the team, I'd like to publicly thank the business office and Tanya Mulrad, our new treasurer. Tanya did obviously a lot of the heavy lifting, most of the heavy lifting on this, did an excellent job. We didn't miss a beat with it this year. It was well organized and it went very smoothly. So thank you, Tanya. So at this point, I'll just turn this over to Gary Theodore, the lead partner with Nugent & Hausler, who's going to give us an overview, a brief overview of the audit and financial statements.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Theodore, a CPA partner with the accounting firm of Nugent & Hausler. We audited about 17 school districts in the area, and we've been your auditor, I think, for at least 10 years or more at this point in time. I've gone over the audit report in detail with the audit committee, so I'll just stop at a couple quick highlights of the report. For those who want to follow along with me, page 1 is where I'll start. The first item in your audited financial statements is the independent auditor's report. There are different types of reports that can be given on your financial statement. This is the best type of report, an unqualified opinion. After the auditor's report is management discussion and analysis. I won't stop there, but I'll go to page 16 for those following along. Because your financial statements, like every other school in New York State, it has actually two sets of financial statements. One is called the government-wide statements, which include all the funds together, plus your fixed assets and your debt. And then the fund financial statements, which historically have been that way for many, many decades. So on the bottom of page 16, at the very bottom number, your total net position, under the government-wide method, you see a minus $43,000. And we normally like that number to be a positive number, but because this is a long-term view, a business-type view of your financial statements, the other post-employment benefits of $125 million, which is under the liability section, that's driving your government-wide statements to be negative. And so it kind of gives you a long-term view of the retirement benefits, giving health insurance to retirees, and the cost of that and the effect of that on the school's finances. So that's probably one of the eye-opening things about this type of financial statement. The other thing is all schools are going through this, so probably almost every other school in the state has a negative number there as well on this government-wide basis. Flipping the page to page 17, the third number up from the bottom, we see a minus $11 million, and once again, driven by the other post-employment benefits, you can see the negative effect that's having on your government-wide statements. Now, flipping to the next page, page 18, we're back to historically what the financial statements have looked like in the past. And under this method, you'll see each fund listed. And the very first column is the general fund. And if you go down to almost the very bottom, the second number up from the bottom, your fund balance, the general fund balance at the end of the year was $19 million. And you'll see the breakdown above that, where the restricted is $10 million. Those are reserves, like a self-insurance for a rainy day. Then you have your assigned fund balance of $2 million. And of that, $1.3 million is the give back to reduce taxes for the 16-17 year. And then your unassigned fund balance is the 4% that you're legally allowed to keep. So you can see on the fund basis, the financial statements look very good. As you go across, that's the second line up from the bottom, as you go across, you'll see every fund has a positive fund balance to it. Going forward 2 pages, now we see the income and expenses for the funds again. We've moved away from that government-wide statement. These are the fund financial statements. The very first column is the general fund, and the third number up from the bottom, the $4 million, is the amount of income that came in over expenses for the general fund. And as you look at that number going across, the third number up from the bottom, you'll see the general fund had a $4 million surplus, special aid fund 0, school lunch fund had a $207,000 surplus. The capital number is negative, but that's just timing differences between years. And the debt service fund has a negative because it moves some money to the capital fund during the year. But on a fund financial statement, you'll see the school is very healthy, the way it should be. So that's kind of a quick overview of the numbers of the financial statements. As I spoke to Elsie during the audit, I noticed that the whole atmosphere of the business office was fantastic. So from my point of view as an auditor, to see the work that Patrick and Tanya are doing, it's really good. So I'm happy to report to the board that the financial statements are in good shape. The business office, from our point of view, is in good shape. And I always like to mention that I don't work for the school, I work for the board. So if a board member ever has a question or anything that they want to contact me about or ask me about, feel free to call me. And that's my presentation.
Thank you.
We always ask the same question to help the public understand this. The benefits debt that, we see that like Detroit, we've seen more and more recent issues with other states that have run into this problem where there's a massive benefit debt. And I know a few years ago they kicked it around of how they might think about asking schools to repay that number. Any language or any discussions that you've heard about as far as how they might be dealing with this in the future?
Yeah, so So the Detroit example you bring up is the unfunded pensions of the retired people and how the city there hasn't been able to put money into the pension plan to cover the future costs. So in New York State, the TRS and the ERS are very well funded, so that's not a problem here. But now you're bringing up another item, and that's how to pay for the retiree health insurance. And right now, New York State doesn't have any mechanism to put money aside for that like they do pensions. And right now, there's nothing on the pipeline I'm seeing for that as well. So we're just going to have to deal with that each year as it comes along.
Or not.
Or not, yeah.
Anything else? Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. Is that it, Patrick?
That's it, yes.
All right. Do we have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor of, before passing the business and financial reports?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. And now,
Lucky us.
No, not again.
the school climate report.
My presentations are so bleak, I want to go work in the business office.
No, you don't.
Well, they...
That was amazing. He's like, the atmosphere in the business office is great.
The grass
I'm like,
is always greener.
come on down to the curriculum office, bud.
No, we praise them.
That's why I said, do they want him?
I don't know.
No. Patrick?
I'm talking about climate. All right.
Yeah. Sure we do.
Chili?
Good segue.
And the lights are down.
There you go.
Climate is hostile. End of
I'm working on it.
It's a sign.
I was prepared before the agenda got amended.
I think we need to change this and get out of using the word climate.
I know. Well,
There's got to be a better word.
the issue. Well, I haven't even started yet. Getting heckled already.
Really so, Chris. There we go. And we're on.
Okay. Enter full screen. Thank you to the Board of Education for the opportunity to present and speak to you about our school climate report for the 15-16 school year. As everybody knows, this is the second consecutive year that we've had our school climate initiative. Part of the reason why we call it School Climate is our work has been with the National School Climate Center, and that's kind of what they call it. We definitely need to continue the conversation about the best way to, get people out of the weather mindset related to this when I'm sending out my emails asking for people to participate. I want to start with just a very, very brief overview about what the work is that we're doing and what it is that we're measuring and what we're looking at. The National School Climate Center basically identifies school climate as the quality and character of school life for students, parents, and school personnel with regards to a variety of factors. They have a 5-stage process of examining school climate. We've been through this cycle now a couple of times because this is, it's our second full year, but we really started the process during the 14-15 school year. So we've been through a few evaluation, action, implementation, reevaluation, action, implementation. Basically, what we did was the first year we did a series of assessments. However, the main assessment is the Comprehensive School Climate Inventory, which is basically a survey. It's a nationally normed, scientifically based survey that is created by the National School Climate Center. Previously, the survey evaluated 12 different dimensions. This year, they've added a 13th dimension that I'm going to speak to you a little bit about. And the CSEI, the survey, is administered to students, staff, and parents. This year, we administered it to students in grades 4 through 12. Last year, we administered it to students in grades 3 through 12. We found that the third graders had a little bit of difficulty understanding the context of some of the questions, even with the teachers reading them the passages. So this year, we opted not to administer it to third grade, and we started the survey beginning in fourth grade. Again, just a quick overview of the 13 dimensions. The first category is safety, and the first 3 dimensions are rules and norms, a sense of physical security, how safe do the kids feel, and a sense of social emotional security. The next category is teaching and learning. How well are we supporting learning, and how well are we supporting social and civic learning? And I've accompanied this with the various definitions that they give to each of these areas. The next category is interpersonal relationships, and this includes respect for diversity, the social support for adults, and the social support for our students. The next category is institutional environment, and that includes school connectedness and engagement, as well as the physical surroundings of our schools. And this is the new category that they've added this year, social media. It's the 11th dimension out of the 13. I'll read the definition for this one because it's new. They define social media as the sense that students feel safe from physical harm, verbal abuse, teasing, gossip, and exclusion when online or on electronic devices. Again, this is a new category this year for the survey. And finally, because the survey is administered to staff, there are 2 other categories where they explore leadership and professional relationships. So for us, we administered the first survey in June of 2015. That was after we started our relationship with the National School Climate Center in January of 2015. In June of 2015, we emailed the link to staff and parents, and we had as many students as we could go down to computer labs and take the survey. The timing was less than ideal because it was at the end of the school year. For the middle school and the high school, they were approaching final exams. The students had a very brief time period. We had low numbers. The first communication that we sent to parents in June of 2015 was the communication asking them to participate in the survey. And I think that there were a lot of questions and a lot of apprehension about participating. We sat and we had many conversations, and this past year, for the 15-16 school year, we tried to bump up the time frame so as not to feel the time crunch and the pressures of the end of the school year. So we decided that we were going to re-administer the survey in April of 2016. This was post-state assessments, but pre-push for final exams at the end of the school year. The survey started, I think it was the middle of April, and it concluded the first week of May. The format was very similar to the way that we administered in June of 2015. We emailed staff and parents, and we had students participate taking the survey in computer labs. However, we tried to improve upon some of the communication that we did with parents. One of the things that I did last year was I sent something out in advance saying to the parents, because after my October 2015 presentation to the board, I took all of this information and I created a school climate link on the district website. I put this survey up there along with the results and a lot of the descriptions, links to the National School Climate Center, and so on. And then before we were going to administer the survey, I sent out something to the parents saying, we're still continuing with this work. Here's the highlight of some of the things that we've done over the course of the year. Here's the link to the district website with the results and the presentation from last year. Here's some additional information. So as people weren't caught off guard when they got that email sent to them. We also sent out a variety of reminders throughout the process. Here's the numbers that we had for this past year. Total, we had 2,771 students. That was an increase of 121 students from the previous year. But also remember that we didn't have approximately 500 third graders participating in the survey this year. So even though we cut out the third graders, we still netted an additional 121 students. So we made up for the third graders not participating, plus we still increased it by 121 students. We had about 10% of this less staff participate, but we had an increase of 186 parents participate from last year, which is about a 20% increase. Overall, I think that I would certainly like to see that number higher, but 20% I think is a good number. One of the things that we've spoken about in this, and I've said this in a variety of forms where I've talked about this. Last year, when we started this process, I think that there was a variety of concerns and apprehension about this, because when you survey people, you're giving people the opportunity to be able to give their feedback. And you never really know what type of feedback it is that you're going to get. So there has to be a sense of understanding of acceptance of, no matter what comes back, we need to be prepared to be able to roll up our sleeves, take that information, and move forward. And one of the things that we spoke about last year was people feeling concerned about even the format of, having it be sent out via email, and can it be traced back to me, even though the surveys are totally anonymous. The National School Climate Center stores all of the data. The only data that we get is a PDF report at the end of the overall scores by building, and then we get a much broader district-wide report. There's no link to individuals. There's no attachment to anybody. And my goal is for people to realize that we're not going to go after people for the type of feedback that they give. Ultimately, this is information that we hope to use to try to get us to improve upon what it is that we do here. So let's talk a little bit about the results. This is a chart, and I apologize because I copied this directly from the PDF of the district-wide report that they sent us. So here's how the survey is administered. It's a series of statements, and there is a rubric from 0 to 5. And it might give a statement, something along the lines of, in my school, there are clear rules against hurting other people. And students rate whether they strongly disagree, agree, have no opinion, strongly disagree, have no opinion, agree, or strongly agree. 5 being strongly agree, 1 being completely disagree. So at the bottom, you have each of the various categories that I spoke about earlier, and each of the lines represent a population of people who took the survey. Orange is the faculty, bless you.
Thank you.
Blue are parents, and purple are students.
Thank you, sorry.
Last year, our results were as follows. We scored highest in safety rules and norms, basically giving the indication that people have a sense of security and feel a safety with regards to the rules and norms that we establish within the school district. The area that we performed lowest on was the sense of social and emotional security, the third one in, which for us continues to be an area that's low. Now, something that's interesting, the gap between the students and the faculty and parents has been brought a little bit closer. It's still an area where there's a very clear dip there. One of the things that I reported to the board last year was, when we got this report, I called them and I said, okay, this is the report for Monroe-Woodbury, and certainly this is valuable information, but how does this compare to this nationwide survey that you administer? And one of the things that they said to me was that our trends tend to follow what the national norm is. For example, they said to me that students historically score the lowest across the board, and the faculty tend to score the highest across the board in terms of each of the categories. However, when we met as an administration, one of the things that we walked away from, even more so than the sense of social and emotional security, was the social media category. Because if you look at that category, all 3 populations ranked that very low. In fact, later on when I talked to you about the ranking of each of the categories, social media came back as the lowest area, the greatest area of concern, and that's something that we're going to be talking about more. This next chart, again, shows all of the various categories on the left, and it shows the 3 populations, students, staff, and parents, and it ranks each of the categories in terms of how it was scored. Again, safety rules and norms were either 1 or 2 across the board. Sense of social and emotional security were 10, 10, and 11. but social media was the lowest, 11, 11, and 10. Again, meaning that had the lowest of the scores.
Did the parents know what that was?
The descriptions were included in there in terms of asking questions about how do you feel. I can get you the wording of the way that it was worded, but it was questions about how do you agree that your child is safe online? Do you know, things like that.
Can you go just back one more
Sure.
time? I just want to look at the social and civic learning. That seems to be pretty consistent too for us.
Yeah, social, and that was actually
on the
an
high
area
side.
that we've talked about that we're still sort of in the works of doing in terms of giving kids opportunities to be able to do good things for the community and sort of engage in outreach.
Okay.
I mean, an example is that, you know, we have an Interact Club at the high school that does a tremendous amount of community outreach, but that's a finite population of a group of kids. I've had a lot of conversations with Lori Hawk about some of our athletic teams have done a variety of positive things in the community beyond just their athletic competitions. We had a breast cancer walk at the Woodbury Commons a week ago, and you may have seen on social media, a lot of our athletic teams showed up at the breast cancer walk and showed support for that particular event. That is something that we're really out there trying to encourage, you know, beyond just being athletes. We had an Uncommon Athlete presentation, and we're trying to show our kids you're in a very powerful position by being varsity athletes. It's great to get out there and use your positions beyond just the athletic field and make a difference and you know, support civic learning. Having our athletic teams going out of the breast cancer walk is an example of that.
How did we compare to last year?
We are pretty consistent. It's pretty in line with where we were last year. Yep.
Do you have that?
I do have that.
Okay.
Yep.
To show us?
I don't have that in here because they haven't given me any sort of comparison. All I have is basically last year's presentation and graphs, and I basically sit down and I kind of go side to side.
Okay.
That one of the things that I talk about sort of as next steps is I want them. We don't have access to the data. I only get like the
printout.
actual charts that they give us. I want them to sort of break it down in terms of statistically how correct,
changing?
right? Because we don't, they don't give me control over the data.
Because
They
if
just
we're implementing,
Right.
we want to see a result.
absolutely. I agree. Yep,
But then also more people are
participating.
so that's kind of can be an offset also.
Right, right.
Well, I think that if more people are participating, that also is an indicator that more people feel comfortable participating in this. So that's a good thing.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So the next series of charts are basically a breakdown by building of the rankings of the various categories. So in the end, I get a PDF report of about 12 pages, which consists of these charts. The building principals each get about a 150-page report down to every single question in every single category by building of how the people are actually responding to demonstrate some of the variations that are seen here. In the end, you can see that even though safety rules and norms ranked overall 1 and 2, some buildings it was a little bit higher than others. However, one thing that I wanted to know, and this is the results by the faculty, is the social media category. It was 11 at the high school, 12 at the middle school, 13 by all of the other buildings. It was, by and large, the lowest category by this population of people. Same thing for, these are the rankings by the parent. The difference is for parents, you'll notice that safety rules and norms for every single building, with regard, except to the high school, it was number 2 rather than number 1. Otherwise, it's 1 universally across the board. Social media, again, universally all the way down, 11, 10, 10, 11, 11, 11, 11. Students, safety rules and norms across the entire board. The reason why it's less is because, again, remember, we only administered the survey to the 325 buildings, the middle school and the high school. Safety rules and norms, again, universally number 1. However, for the students, collectively across the board,
Sense of
social and emotional security was 11 all the way down, and social media was just slightly higher than that category. So, next steps. The next steps this year are fairly similar to the next steps last year. We're once again going to get out there and we're going to do presentations too. We have a DLC meeting coming up next week. I'm going to be speaking about this once again. The building principals have very detailed reports about the results of their individual schools. They're going to be speaking about it at faculty meetings. I'm going to be getting feedback from the NSCC with regards to some of the items that were spoken about, and how do we be able to, how do we put the data from last year and this year side by side to see how it is that we are doing? And then to start, again, developing plans and programs to enhance some of the areas of strength and continuing to address some of the areas of our weaknesses. I do want to note that we have the health and wellness meeting next week, and I've had a variety of very interesting conversations with regards to those two meetings. The DLC, I have we call it a tri-chair, where it's an administrative representative, which is myself. We have Justine Seeley, who is a teacher representative, and we have Christine Leonard, who is a parent representative. And the three of us meet to discuss the goals of the DLC for the upcoming year. And I gave them some broad strokes with regards to some of the results of the survey, and we talked about it. And one of the things that we discussed was they have, both of them have kids at the high school and at the Christine has children at the college level. We talked about college and career readiness. That's like a big buzzword out there right now that's been attached to the Common Core and getting kids academically ready for college and career. And we discussed how when our kids graduate, we want to make sure that they're life ready. And when you start to see things like the concerns with regards to social media and then a variety of other pitfalls, it brought me back to a conversation I had last year with a parent who, actually Elsie and I both had the conversation with this parent. It was a dad whose daughter was graduating and going to college. And he said, what type of preparation do we give kids to prepare them to go away to college with regards to keeping themselves safe, making wise decisions, relationships? We have some of those things embedded in health class. We're going to be speaking about that at the health and wellness meeting. But this is going to be something that we are going to really start to dig into. How do we support our kids with regards to understanding their online lives and the implications of their actions and the things that they do, and social media and all of the things that go along with that? One of the reasons why I put up there enhance our strengths, I think that this initiative has been one of the most exciting aspects of my job, partly because it's very exciting to give this presentation on a night where we're electing a student representative to the Board of Education. Because in my opinion, this work has started conversations about what it is that we should be speaking about, which is our students. Mm-hmm. Having Dan on the Board of Education, in my opinion, is something that has started out of this. And ironically, when we put the student rep, you may remember this, up for the public vote, that got 77% of the votes from the community. Like, no disrespect, we got like 75% for the budget, which is amazing. But it scored higher than even the passing of the budget. And that, for me, is something very, very significant. And I think that we're making positive strides. I think that this is fostering very, very, very serious conversations. I can tell you that I'm really excited about the health and wellness meeting and the DLC meeting next week, because we've started a lot of very serious conversations about drugs, about the welfare of our kids, about social media, about race. And in the end, I think it ultimately is a positive for the experience of what our kids get in Monroe Woodbury. Questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
Mike pointed out here also, we have like 1,800 students in high school. Mm-hmm. How come 379 kids only took the test?
One of the things that we have to look at is the best way to be able to get kids into the lab to actually take it. I actually had conversations last year with John Flanagan about we're going to Google for the school district. We've created Google accounts for our kids because the kids need, and a lot of our teachers are using Google Classroom, and they use their Google Classroom. In fact, Dan, I had a conversation with you about using Google when Dan was applying for the Board of Ed position. We talked about making sure that he had access and using your Google account in order to be able to complete the application. Do we email it to the kids to be able to try to get the word out more and get them to participate? Because at the high school level, to carve out time to get kids down to the computer lab to sit and take the survey is really, really hard.
Why can't it just be a homework assignment that needs to be complete?
And that, again, that's one of the things that we talked about is if we issue it to the kids in their Google account and say to the kids, in your email right now, all 2,400 kids have access, they're sent the link. They can take it on their cell phones and stuff like that. You're being emailed the link to your Google account. That's something that we may potentially do. In fact, last year we talked about some of the complications of, where can it go? But in the end, it's not a good thing if we're talking ourselves out of doing something like that.
Same thing with the parents. The parents is like not even 10% of the parents took these things.
The parent is a little bit of a different situation. I think that, we get it out there. My hope is that the more we speak about this, and again, the less people feel like that this is something that is kind of, we're going to find you if you rate us negatively or whatever. I'm sure that there are people who rated us negatively, and we haven't gotten to them.
Also think the parent thing, which we clarified last year, but maybe just have to go over
just keep
again,
harping on it. Yep.
Is when you have children in multiple buildings, you need to take the survey multiple times.
Yes.
So I think, like for me,
Yes.
if I have 4 children in the district, the first year I got it, I took the survey once
Right.
and I deleted the rest of the emails. Whereas last year I knew that now I had to take 1 per building.
And that's one that I had, after we spoke about this last year, I had many conversations with the National School Climate Center about that, because one of the things that I was pushing them to do was get 1 parent survey, and at the beginning, give parents the opportunity to check off what kids they had in their building. The reason why they talked me out of that was because they said, in the end, you're going to get a district-wide report, and it is going to sort of water down people's responses with regards to the individual schools. And what I mean by that is each building principal literally gets a 150-page report, and you could see that each building has fluctuations in terms of what's high and what's low. So even though I speak to you about across the board, we're pleased with our safety rules and norms, and we're going to continue to focus on the social emotional piece, and we're going to look into the social media piece, for some buildings, that may be 9 or 10 rather than 11 or 12. So while it may be a focus, there may be 1 or 2 things specific to that building, and if we go to a universal survey and they just simply check, you may not necessarily get the as detailed information specific to the school. And I mean, again, that's something that we can continue to talk about. Maybe, as we move along, we're less concerned about the individuality of the data, and it's better for us to get, if it means that we may get another 30 or 40% people participate because they don't want to take the survey three times because they have kids in 3 schools, then maybe we move on.
So can I just say one thing?
Everybody.
Now that we have a student here, I think I'd like to give this young man some homework.
Wow, you didn't see that?
You were just voluntold, Dan.
So one of the things I think that I'd like to have you do, if at all possible, is go back to the high school, and at our next board meeting, I'd like you to tell us how are ways that we can help our high school students take this survey. What can we do? Is there a time during the year that's better for them? Is there a method that's better? Can we email? I'd like you to come back and share with the board and the community what's a good way of doing this, because it is, it's a very small representation of the high school, and we would really like to get at least 65% of the students taking that survey.
I can tell you the 350 or 400 kids that took the survey are predominantly students who are in art class because they have computer-aided drawing or something like that, and they're in the computer lab. And we reached out to the teachers and we said, can you please administer it to these kids because they were in the computer lab and, you know, we could carve out time to get them there.
So one of the things, from a board's perspective, I think we also, with anything like this, I think it's helpful for the administration no matter what you collect. But I think we need to think in terms of setting goals of what do we accept as success, right? So if we're not going to get a percentage that's meaningful, then I think it's helpful from your standpoint on the operations side. I don't know that it moves the dial at our level. I'm not trying to be, but you've got to have a certain buy-in before, you know, and the extreme is 20 people take it and we spend this time when we know that's not representative of how the school feels. So we can't do anything meaningful with that.
But I think as parents get more comfortable and see that there's no retribution, as the staff sees that nobody's coming after you because you gave us a bad rating for something, they'll get more confident and be willing to take the survey.
I agree. I'm just saying, when does it bubble up to us?
Well, along
Right?
those
So I think
lines,
it's
the
meaningful to
the
you.
students should have
Along
been,
those
all the
lines,
students
though.
should have taken it. I mean, 379 high schools is ridiculous, out of how many students we have. I mean, I'm sure every kid has their phone in homeroom, go on Facebook. They could go to the link in Monroe Woodbury. And
Free day of Wi-Fi. That'll go.
There you go. We're going to turn the Wi-Fi on for one day.
Do we have any data regarding what
I'll
is
get
the
this.
norm, so to speak? Going to that issue, I mean, do we know what other school districts are coming in? Are we within the range of
No,
norm? Do we know
we're
any-
low. We're low. And one of the things that
We're low as compared to other districts? Do you
yes,
see that data?
yes, and I think it, you know, but I think we're, in terms of school districts, I think we're larger than others. So I think, you know, when you're educating a community of 7,000 homes, I mean, maybe 6,000 homes if you have kids in multiple buildings or whatever, you know, it's a lot of word to get out there to try to communicate to people. And, you know, and they say, like, parents are getting emails from the school district for information about PTA meetings, lunch menus, you know, all sorts of different things. And, you know, when you're sort of in the shuffle, you know, as a parent, I get it. And I think hopefully, you know, as we continue to really try to show that this is something that's serious to us, hopefully it'll continue to sort of build upon that. I mean, one of the things that they say is that a statistic is participation. Like, you know, just by saying we got 50% of the parents that participate in our school district shows that you have people that are embracing this initiative even before you get into how they're responding. Just the fact that they took the time, because that shows that you were able to communicate to them the seriousness of this for you, and that they were willing to participate shows their...
So is 50 a number, though? Because, you know, I do a lot of surveys in my industry, and if we get 25% coming back, that's
you're
a lot.
psyched. Yeah, I mean, their perspective with me was they said, yeah, the 20% increase, that's a good jump.
You actually had more, because you were like less than 600 last year, and you increased 186. That's closer to 30%, really.
Right. So, I mean, that's a positive, but when you talk about, that's about...
Right, it's such small
10%, you know, that's...
As
we could do better.
When you look at it, statistically, the people who fill these things out, statistically, they're usually not happy with something. I mean, no, that's the way they go.
That's what he says.
Right, you're not happy, so you fill it out. So we can just chalk it up to this is very successful. It shows a lot of them are happy, and it's helpful to the administration. I just don't, like I said, it you know.
Well, we would hope to have at least so many people who come and vote. We don't get as the people that should come out and vote either. We're talking about thousands and thousands of people. Where do we get like 3,000?
We don't necessarily have.
But usually people who are not happy are the ones that are going to be voting.
But you could
the
have
ones who are happy are probably not
have parents
what he's
voting versus
all the angry
people in
voted us
school.
in.
And that, I mean, for me personally, again, even though the statistic, the participation is a statistic, and this is one of the things that I've said to the National School Climate Center, certainly the responses and the data sort of gives us direction.
Totally.
I think, for me, it facilitates conversation. And I kind of look at it like, above all else, good things come out of that, and certainly, again, social media is really low. We're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to get on that, but, it facilitates the conversation, and again, good things happen from that.
I've been very patient.
My apologies.
I've been very patient. All right, excuse me. I had mentioned last year that whole thing that Chris mentioned, the climate. I mentioned that people thought it was the weather. So we knew last year that rollout at the time was also not a good time. It was around in June when you had graduating kids, you have kids going to prom, you have all the end of the year sports stuff, parties, presentations, so on and so forth. So people were not going to do this, and they were going to maybe procrastinate about doing it.
And the first time that they heard that we were doing it was the email saying, "We want you to. We're doing a school climate survey. Here it is." And there wasn't enough education of them.
I think the time frame wasn't good, and then given an amount of time to do it is also maybe an issue. Because some people don't get to go through their emails.
Right.
So I had suggested getting a hard copy.
Right.
Because a lot of people made comments that they don't want to go through the email because they felt paranoid, or they felt that there would be some kind of, retribution, something that would happen if they, filled it out that we would know. So you have concerts, you have all sorts of stuff going on.
Set up some stations.
Set up some stations, get some hard copies out there, let people take it at their leisure, and let them drop it off anonymously. I mean, that's something, there's a lot of people that are not
tech savvy.
On the internet. There are people that are not savvy. So you got to figure there's a percentage of those people.
Right.
So
And Eric, I also mentioned to you the way New York City does this, they give the parent an open school night, a pamphlet that has a number.
Right.
I have just as much chance of getting the same number. Don and I could switch, Nobody knows what number I was assigned.
Right.
And this way, it's totally random and totally anonymous, and they feel more comfortable with
Right.
it.
Yeah.
I thought that, last year, I thought that it was, the staff was low.
Yeah.
So that was surprising. And to me, the people that didn't speak were the people that really spoke. And the fact that we didn't get the numbers spoke more volume to me.
Right.
That kind of made the statement.
Right. Okay. I hear you.
One last question.
Have you reached out to any districts that have a high participation rate to see what methods they use to acquire the data?
We are the only district in the area who's doing this, which is ironic because State Ed is actually talking about coming out with a school climate index. It's in the hopper right now. And basically the school climate index is going to be the combination of a school climate survey that everybody's going to be required to take statewide, your VADER data, and DASA data, and I believe attendance. And they're going to somehow weave it together to give you
a score.
I'm glad they're not calling it the temperature.
So we're doing
Right.
better than any of the other schools in Orange County.
Right now, there are no other schools in the county that are doing this. We actually,
Therefore, we're
Wappingers.
doing better.
Technically, we're doing better. We're number one, yes. We are leaps and bounds ahead. We had, the only other school district in the area that I know that is doing this, or actually is considering this, is we had Wappingers reach out to us because they're starting to talk about it, and the National School Climate, the National School Climate Center told Wappingers to reach out to us, and Elsie and I met with the superintendent and some administrators from Wappingers about it.
So the last thing I have is, there was a box that has suggestions or comments.
Yep.
Now, do they read through all of those and then let you know what were issues? Because this is all good about the emotional stuff, and you know that that's really where we really need to focus on, right? So what are we doing about it?
We had 2 comment boxes. One comment box was for the students on athletics, and we got, I can tell you the exact number. I have it in my notes.
Very short.
Really?
I promise you.
We had 120 students reply with some type of feedback, either I love my team or Ironically, a lot of the feedback was on field conditions, and we hope that the fields are better and everything else. I sent the information to Lori, and it's literally just a text file with just comments. And we're literally sitting and just starting to sort of go through it. The parent box, we got about 70 parent responses, and the parent responses are, because it went to all 7 buildings, it's a much wider range of feedback. The students, it was all about the kids that responded, athletics, because the question was, tell us about your athletic experience. The comment box for parents was, give us any other feedback or comments, and it was things about everything under the sun, ranging from my child comes home and complains about the size of food portions in the cafeteria, to things about, I have difficulty about making it to certain events because of the timing of events and things like that. Right now, we're going through them and collating them down to categories of, this is a secondary one, this is an elementary one, so that way we can get the proper, this is something for all this, that the kids don't like the type of buns that you're using in the cafeteria. I'm going through and I'm kind of collating the various people to kind of farm out the feedback that we got. And it was good. It's all valuable stuff.
Thank you, Eric.
Oh.
I have to go and have breakfast. No, we appreciate it. We have a billion things tonight. That's what do you do with it? You get this information, and you have to put it into action. That's what we need to do.
Yep.
The presentation on the alternative education programs, David Burnsley.
Sure, hold on one second. I'm getting it up.
He's just going to sit there, but Mr. Burns is going to present.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
We welcome you as a result.
Thank you for having me. I've lost my voice since I've been here. So
I've lost my voice. How have you lost your voice?
No. I really appreciate you guys hearing me and giving me this opportunity to research this. And this is going to be the first of many presentations to keep the board updated with the progress and what we're finding out. This presentation tonight is just an overview of the first phase. There's going to be different phases throughout. First phase was to do an analysis of the programs that our students are currently attending, and definition of alternative school, so a non-traditional school environment. Our students have, students have several needs, and sometimes in our own district, we don't have the means to provide it for them. So one of the things that we're looking at is to look at the different programs we send our students to, and how realistic it is to create our own programs and have students attend here at Monroe-Woodbury. District of residence, it's funny that Elsie had mentioned before about it. It's, district of residence students, when we say that, students that live within our school district, but they may go to alternative schools, but they are the responsibility of Monroe-Woodbury. I looked at approximately, from the 2015-16 school year, approximately 125 students. Okay. As I mentioned before, the students are tuitioned out, and there's a couple of different things that we need to look at. One is the alternative placement, and that could be because of medical reasons or CSC, IEPs, special ed reasons, that we send them to different placements. It's always for the betterment of the student and do what's best for the student. with everything that we do, everything's based on the needs of the student and what's best for them, and that's important to remember. Students on home instruction, there are different reasons students could be on home instruction. For medical, we have students, unfortunately, that have medical concerns, and we try to accommodate their needs. Our principals and staff members do a wonderful job. Alethea is in charge of home instruction, and she does a wonderful job working with everyone to ensure that our students' needs are being met. And also the parents. A lot of concerns, and Alethea does a wonderful job with them. CSE, we have students that sometimes that are waiting for placement in other schools, outside school districts, so we want to keep them updated with their services, not only their education, but other services that they're entitled to and that they need. And for OSS, out-of-school suspension. We also have an academy at the high school. John Flanagan does an outstanding job with the academy, along with our teachers. And that's really a credit recovery program. It's after school, a few times a week. And again, it's mostly for students who might not have passed a class or need extra credits to graduate, and it's a wonderful opportunity for them. Our overall goal, like I said, is to look at the current alternative programs and hopefully duplicate and do a better job, to be very honest with you, within our district. We have wonderful resources and wonderful people here, and we're very confident in our ability to create programs not only meet the students' needs, but go beyond. So we're looking at all of that right now. We want to look at the programmatic needs, and it's not just academic, but it's also the social and emotional and physical. There's a lot to look at here. It's not just surface. There's many layers to it. And again, we want to do what's best for the students, so we can't just look at it from one angle. We have to look at it from multiple angles. We are going to look at the different, when we say physical plant locations within the district, one of the things are, if we do it, where will we do it? That's something that the Facilities Committee will eventually be involved with. Major input from them, as we will hopefully be able to present different things, maybe go on site visitations down the road, things that we're speaking about. The cost analysis of creating an alternative program is not just program tuition, but it's the services that go align for the kids, the students that need these services. It's transportation, it's staffing. Students have one-on-one, they have monitors, they have physical therapy, go on. And then the retrofitting of existing facilities. Again, not only where we can hold this, but there's special equipment and needs that students have that we have to look at. So approximately $20 million was spent on the programs last year. The breakdown is the BOCES, meaning Orange, Ulster, and Rockland. That's the majority of where our students attended. We have private residential home instruction academy, which I just mentioned, and the cost. It's not just tuition. People think of these programs as only tuition. There's other layers to it, and that's something that we are looking at
Just to be clear, the 20 million's on the 125 students?
Approximately, yes, sir.
Yes, from a facility standpoint, I know we've discussed this. To us, this is one of the most important programs that we're looking at right now, because we even can bring half of those students back in. We're looking at $10 million.
Savings.
Yeah, in saving. Well, we might not save the money.
Right.
We may not save it, but even if we spend the same amount and keep it in district, we're improving the lives of those students because they don't have to be transported. They don't have to have the other things. So, and I also think it creates more teacher opportunities within our own district as well.
And more effective instruction.
So to me, this is one of the most important programs that we're doing from a facility standpoint.
That $20 million is with grants coming back and money coming back from state?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that. That's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that. I will get back to you on that. Thank you.
Can I just jump in? It's what we expend. It doesn't include that. It does not include,
So there's no credit there yet?
No.
Right.
So we really don't know the real number at that moment?
We don't know the net.
We don't know the net,
Right.
right.
So,
But the assumption is we would still get the credit if we're.
That's correct.
We still get the credit in?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Right.
Whether they're out of district or in
Or in district. They're
That's
still-
correct.
they're
We still get the
high
credit.
state.
Yep, yes.
but I will look deeper into that. Thank you for the question.
$160,000 a person right now.
Yeah, it's $160,000.
It's a lot.
Per
Usually
student right now.
125.
Okay.
So I looked at approximately 40 programs in which we send our students, and as you can see, the programs vary. IDT and Restart. IDT is a program where students who maybe have an emotional concerns are transitioning back to a building. Restart is substance abuse. Again, transitioning back and what we could do to service and assist with these students. So those programs included with the other ones are what we're looking at. What we're looking at is a comprehensive analysis at this point.
May I just say something
Sure.
about Restart?
Sure.
When you send out students to Restart, that's, that could be 1 month, 2 months, they can come back within
Sure.
a certain amount of time. They're using insurance, private insurance for that?
They use
So we're not-
insurance, but if I'm correct, I believe we pay for the
We're still
educational
responsible for the
portion.
educational portion.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
therapeutic
Right.
is what the insurance covers, the educational we're
we
responsible
cover.
The
for.
same as if a student is hospitalized, say,
Okay.
we're still responsible for educating them. We
Right.
pay the bill for tutoring within the hospital for
Okay.
their education, but the parent may be using their insurance for other costs and things like that.
Okay.
Do you know off the top of your head, the 125 that you were talking about, do you know, is there where is the bulk of these 125? Are they kind of evenly distributed, or is one of these the biggest portion?
Orange Ulster BOCES is obviously the highest percentage. Rockland BOCES is right behind it. As I said, the majority is the 2 BOCES programs. Why consider an in-district alternative program? I'll leave that to Mr. Hubert. Our mission statement. It's in support of our mission statement. I think, as we were speaking about it, what describes what we want to do better than our mission statement. And I know you read it already, Mr. Hubert, so I won't read it again.
It's the same with the climate. It should be the same with everything. With facilities, everything goes
Back
towards
to the
that.
core. Yep. So anyway, the next steps. Again, I said there's a lot of phases to this process. It's exciting because we're finding things out and we have a lot of great ideas. But with the great ideas, you have to continue to do research and speak and do site visitations. So the next step is to get committees. We certainly want all stakeholders, not just Dave Bernsley, but we want other administrators, we want staff members, and we want parents, students, board members, if they would like to be part of it. We need input, and it's important for us. So we are going to be convening committees very shortly. Site visitations with team of professionals. I already visited one school myself just to get a feel for it, but we're going to go to several schools, and we're going to have a rubric that we're going to use. And I'm sure that at some point the board will receive that to see how we're assessing it and what we're looking at and what we deem as positive and that will fit what we want to do. Collaborate with the facilities committee. There's a lot to discuss and to go through, and that's something that we will certainly look forward to. Create a fiscally responsible budget. Outline possible alternative programs. When I say a 5-year plan, I know in my head I have some great ideas, at least I think I do, but it needs to be phases. Okay, it can't just everything at once. There's a lot here, a lot to do. We're going to be, hopefully, the first school in New York State that I know of that's K-12 eventually down the road, but can't get there right away. It's steps. So, again, I appreciate what you're offering here for me. Follow my passion, my dream, but more importantly, the students in the district. We have to develop curriculum based on the program services, and of course, every future recommendations will go through Elsie and Eric, and will go to you as the Board of Education. And that is the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very exciting.
Yep, questions?
Yes, I just
Exciting
have
and
one.
important. Thank you.
The students are made up with various disabilities, or in here is medical. Are we going full force, or are we limited to?
I'm glad you brought that up, and I should have said
Okay.
that, so I apologize. Not every student is going to be able to come back to the district. We have to be realistic and do what's best for the child and the family. So no, not every student will be able to come back to the district. We may not be able to create those programs that they need.
Even before the program was started, John, Elsie, and myself met with BOCES and went over the group of students that was being outsourced. And they said, look, there's a group of them that you'll have more success at bringing back than others. So I think that was some of the thought process when this program was even started, was we know it's not all of them. Some of them wouldn't fit well back in this environment. But I think that was the catalyst for starting this program, is the fact that even BOCES says, yeah, there is a group of these that can't come back.
And there may be some programs that what we're paying and the cost for us to recreate a program, it may not be cost prohibitive.
Yeah,
right.
true.
And it may not make sense.
So the next thing is, obviously, if you only have, we'll say, 60 of those students that can come back, because you never know every year, you should know who's coming in kindergarten. We should be preparing who's coming in and who's going to be. Will we accept out-of-district students?
That's a conversation that...
That is a board decision.
Yeah, that's a conversation.
That would be a conversation, and it would have to
If you're saying
be.
we're going to be the first school, and that's our vision, and we want to be that school, then we want to open the door.
That would be a board policy.
That's-
Because currently, our board policy does not allow us to accept tuition students. So I think as we create this and as we move along in the process.
We discussed that, it's a possibility.
And again,
that goes to the future, I'm sorry, to the future recommendations, if that's what Elsie decides she
But I
wants
also
to do.
think that's why we're putting so much effort into evaluating.
And it
this,
raises
too.
questions
It's
of,
complex.
if you have a program that's saying 8, and we have 4 kids, we may be able to balance that class by potentially opening up to a tuition, where otherwise it might not make sense for us to be able to create that class in and of itself. Other programs may not be the case. We may have a full cohort of kids that we can take from another out-of-district program and create the program as is within our district. So I think there's a lot of, once we start drilling down to, the actual programs, we'll know more.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. Terrific.
Another thing here.
This is a discussion about Saturday detention, and is it?
Oh, it's a presentation Saturday.
It is a presentation?
Yes, it is.
You just told me it was a discussion.
Sorry.
Are you the Are you the superintendent of schools?
Sorry, I looked at Eric isn't that city.
No. It's
Are you sure?
John Cassidy and Michael Lasano are going to give the... And Matt.
It's on my computer, though.
Forgive us, it's getting late.
Good evening. Finished the 7th game of the series, I
Yet
think.
again, under my purview.
Started.
Aren't the elections?
What are you doing?
Every
Elections
item on the agenda.
Eric, you should
Jill
switch seats
Steinway.
with him.
Switch seats with him?
Yes.
Or you can go back to your own.
Move him over.
You're not the middle, so you don't have the middle child syndrome.
Yes.
So now you have to do it, man. I'm not good. There's nothing on
It is, it's up there.
All right.
Oh.
And you can do this. Start right arrow open. Got it? Yeah. Cool.
Doing a great job, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
There's a
Yeah. No, I got it. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity for us to present some other steps that we think would be good in our progressive discipline consequences. Last year, towards the end of the school year, we had a discussion with Mrs. Rodriguez as we had a student that had a incident at the end of the school year, and we talked about what can we do differently so that that student wouldn't have a consequence lead into his freshman year in the high school. And during those initial conversations, we began to think, what else can we do during the school year that will also help support students and give us different options for a discipline consequence?
So before I even get into this, for me, I've obviously been at the high school for just a short while. And one of the things that we're realizing is that when discipline is handled there, the word progressive is important because some kids make decisions that may or may not be the best ones, and they've never made a bad decision or seemingly made a bad decision before. And then others, it's when you're looking at it from a progressive standpoint, sometimes it might not be the first or the second or even the third act. But in addition to that, I think we all feel it's important to be proactive in our approach as opposed to simply reacting to what a child does or may do. The other things that we feel are really important in both the middle school and the high school are to be present and visible so that those students, so we can connect with those kids and build those personal relationships, so hopefully that these numbers and this list of consequences whittles down as we move. I think one of the hardest things for me in being there, and Mrs. Rodriguez knows this, is when we've sat in meetings when I've sat in meetings with kids that I've known since they were in about second grade. And when you sit down with a parent who you've known for 8 or 9 or 10 years and a child, and you say, whoa, you just made a really bad decision, and it's hard not to feel like their own parent. And as parents, we all know it's difficult that when we say, look, I'm punishing you not because I want to, but because I care about you, and which is, they don't want to hear that either. I love you so much, you're grounded, don't come out of your room, you're not even there. But ultimately, while we can go through this list, the biggest message I think from tonight is that as much as possible, we want our kids to stay in school. Good decision, bad decision, we want to do our best to make sure that they're there. Because what we feel that when they're with us, we can give them as much as we possibly can in terms of level of support. This is just a simple list of things that happen. Kids get warned, they get counseled, they get mediation. Sometimes there's lunch detention or after school, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, or long-term suspension, depending on the acts. When we have to, when we interact with kids, I think there's typically 2 things that they say to us. The first thing is, do you have to call my parents? And we say, oh, yeah, well, we do. And the second one is, how much class am I going to miss? How much homework do I have to make up? How much work am I going to have to make up? What do I get? I get out-of-school suspension. I get 2 hours of instruction a day as opposed to something more. And that's really the crux behind this whole conversation. This was not my conversation initially. I just appreciate the opportunity to, really work along with the middle school, with this. So, sorry, I'm supposed to press that.
And tying in with what Dr. Hassler presented, at the building level, what the National School Climate Committee looks like is a building level committee made up of parents, administration, faculty members, and students. And we get to have these really meaningful discussions and brainstorming sessions and come up with some decisions and direction with some of the issues that we're facing at the building level, and that's why that building level data is so important. So when we had this conversation at the end of last year, we brought it to that committee, and some of the ideas that came forward were similarly minded to what we're saying here. We want kids in class, especially struggling students. We do not want them being further frustrated by missing class time. We threw the ideas out to the faculty at the middle school, and what we noticed in the data that we got back is that people were not satisfied with our current range of options, and I think the gap is most noticeable at the middle school right now. Currently, we have this kind of warning mediation session. Next step would be lunch detention. This next step after lunch detention is in-school suspension. And that is a very big leap to make from an infraction that warrants a lunch detention versus warrants removing a student from class for a period of time in a room, basically just to do work quietly. And lastly, OSS. So when you think about progressive discipline, especially when you're talking about repeat offenders who oftentimes are also struggling academically in school, they come back to the table, they're not receiving the same consequence over and over again. Each time there's a progressive step to a more severe consequence. And unfortunately, the frustration that we feel, especially towards the end of the year, every year when we've worked all year with a student trying to improve their behavior, is we're meeting with Mrs. Rodriguez or a hearing officer, and we're talking about a long-term suspension because these behaviors have continued over the course of the year. And that being said, some of the things that we are concerned about with suspension have already been mentioned here. We're removing students from class. Although we can provide work to students, they are, it's very difficult to duplicate what happens in a classroom. 2 hours with a tutor is certainly not a replacement for 7.5 hours with certified teachers in specific content areas. Among other concerns is that what I said about students struggling academically are prone to repeated behaviors. We see this a lot, especially a major concern is students with disabilities. We have to be thinking about the educational impact while balancing a safe and appropriate learning environment in our buildings. And currently, because of the progressive discipline steps that we have in place, a student is late to class 3 times, it's considered a cut. They get to the next level, and all of a sudden, because a student has been late to class, we are now removing them from class because they're getting in-school suspension, and it just doesn't seem right.
No logic.
It doesn't seem right.
Flies in the face of logic.
Yeah.
So we are proposing 2 new levels at the middle school and 1 new level at the high school. At the middle school, we would like to reinstate our after-school detention. We had it many years ago, approximately 5 years ago. It was removed from the middle school, and we would like to bring that back as one of our first steps to add to our discipline consequences. The second is Saturday detention. Now, Saturday detention is not the Breakfast Club, and I know you're all thinking that the song's going through your head. I know it. But it is another option for us to do. Now, we can't mandate that a student attends Saturday detention because school is not in session, whereas after school detention you can because school is in session. So our idea is to use the Saturday detention to replace some of the in-school suspension fractions. Those that, such as Mr. Misano said, they've been late to class 3 times, so now they get the in-school suspension. Now we rather offer them the Saturday detention. And there'll be some infractions that would probably get you straight to Saturday detention as well. But the goal is really to keep them in their class instead of in the in-school suspension room. As I said, we can't mandate they go to Saturday detention, so the option would be actually for the parent. Your son can stay in class, or daughter, can stay in class by coming to Saturday detention, otherwise they're going to have an in-school suspension consequence.
What was the reason for removing the after-school suspension years ago?
That was a budget cut.
That was a budget cut.
Yeah, it was a budget cut.
Do you get, but like you said, the person who's late for class 3 times, he's going to get in-school suspension. He should automatically now be remanded to after-school detention, because that's during the day.
Yeah, true.
So after you get so many after-schools, you get bumped to Saturdays?
Yes, that would, right, once again,
Like,
right.
oh, I can undo Saturday,
Right.
I'll do that.
But you can't mandate the Saturday.
No, because school is not in session, so we can't mandate the
Whose
Saturday.
choice would it be, the parent's choice or the child's?
Depends.
In the middle school, it would be the parent's choice.
See, that's-
In the high school, you might have some students who are older that might be making that choice, and that would be Mr. Kravitz's issue.
Yeah, I was just thinking that if I was a student and I was cutting class to begin with, I wouldn't, like, my intention of cutting class would not to go to the class, so I wouldn't want to just, I would rather take an ISS and just pretend to do work for a day than give up a Saturday.
And you're almost rewarding that behavior of that student who doesn't want to be in that class. So you give them ISS, and oh great, I don't have to go to that class. So what we have to do is communicate this effectively to the parents especially, to help them understand the value of, we want an opportunity to continue instruction for your child and limit the consequence as far as instructional time with their teacher by providing an opportunity for them to actually have additional academic time kind of planned out for them during the week, on their weekend. Additional.
And I think in the end, the
Subtraction.
decision is not going to be exclusively in the hands of the student, even though the student may be getting in the car and driving themselves to Saturday detention. In the end, if it rises to that level, the parent will be communicated with, and the parent will be told that the child is being given the option to come to a Saturday detention. And the hope would be that the parent would chime in and say, no, you're not going to sit in an ISS, you're going to Saturday detention.
Exactly,
And
so that they would
Would
support
you,
the school's decision.
Right.
Do you think that I would just get rid of lunch detention and ISS and just automatically, you screwed up today, you got an hour after school detention. You screwed up badly, you have 2 days. I mean, and this way, nobody gets that free time during the day. You have to, so now you screwed up in your class, you no longer get to leave, so you don't get the bonus, like he just said, of being out of class.
Right, you're not
And
getting
now you have to
rewarded.
stay after school, no matter what. There's not, like, I mean, some kids may still want to go to lunch detention. I don't know what you're thinking about getting rid of a couple of those and just making it after school detention.
In the middle school,
Next question, what happens when they're in detention? I mean, I'm going to use something that was said when I was working in the city. You want to make detention as uncomfortable as possible, not a nice place to hang out. And
Correct.
the breakfast club.
correct.
Give them presentations.
Yeah.
They got to fill out the climate exchange.
Do they get to choose the Saturday if there is something?
Eric is going to be running the Saturday detention.
I got it. So we have a couple of questions on the table. First,
Okay.
if I could just address over here.
Thank
In the
you,
middle
John.
school, the students love their lunch. So that is a big punishment for them. That, I think the lunch detention hurts more than the after school, but the after school is going to be another level for us as well.
The question is,
Yeah.
if you're going to say you have to come for Saturday detention, are you telling them what Saturday they're coming?
Oh, yeah.
Because if there is an engagement that the
Correct,
family
correct,
has,
yes.
then do they have an opportunity to make the Saturday, or they're,
Right.
have luck on that?
Our goal is not to offer it every Saturday because you probably wouldn't be able to have enough students to really make that a meaningful time for the supervisor to be there. So we will develop a schedule of what Saturdays we will be offering that, and this way, everybody is aware. I don't know, in the rules, did we say you could reschedule a Saturday? No, you can't. So if you can't make the...
You can't make the one that you chose.
Right, because it might be 2 to 3 weeks later, and then,
I think everyone forgot about it.
Right.
And then the after school, how many hours do they stay?
It would be 3 to about 3:55, and then they're escorted to the bus.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there is the transportation for them, it's not extra
Yes,
transportation?
it would only be on Tuesdays through Thursdays, the
No
after school.
Fridays, okay.
Yeah.
And I think the most important piece is that if there's going to be a delay in terms of an action and then a consequence, what steps do we take as the educators to make sure that that child receives as much support as they can so that they know what they did was wrong and then they don't do it again? It's not just, it can't just be, hey, you did this, I'll see you in 2 weeks, that's Saturday detention, and then that's that. There has to be an ongoing conversation and then steps put in place. Sometimes, always for the kid, and sometimes even for the parents along with that, because there are a lot of times where parents are begging for extra support and extra help with their kids as well, and that's, I don't want to say that's necessarily our job, but it goes a long way when we can help them too.
We're of the
Well, you're their
assumption
eyes
that-
and ears.
We're of the
We're their eyes
assumption
and
you're
ears.
not, like, if
We should be
you're
the support.
determining, okay, skipping it because academically he doesn't want to go to that class, that's a separate decision that you evaluate, that's not part of this.
Correct.
That would be
Right.
handled
Correct.
differently.
Yeah.
Does the high school currently have after-school detention? Oh, they don't.
And there was just one other point raised by Mr. DiLorenzo about getting rid of ISS. Well, what we're talking about is being, proportionate and rational about what meets the infraction. So, and in case where an infraction endangers the safety of other students or that student, whatever the case may be, it's at a level where that student does need to be removed from the classes. There are still going to be those situations, unfortunately, and we need to be able to have those viable options. However, not every case, and I think our numbers in ISS and OSS, because of progressive discipline, would actually diminish over time just
I
because
do
of
also,
that
I do think so also, because kids don't want to stay after school.
How many students are we talking about per year?
per year
Tough, 'cause a lot
facing
of repeats,
suspensions, whether in school or out of school,
Yeah.
and there is a lot of repeated numbers in there. I'd have to look at the exact numbers, but it's a good amount of students.
Anything else?
What was the time frame for the Saturdays?
Next slide. In terms of how long they'll be there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking for them to be there between 8:30 and 11:30 on the Saturday morning, 3 hours, so they can have breakfast and go home and have lunch. This way, we don't have to have any kind of food service going on during the day. Students are going to be told that they have to bring work there with them.
So they have to provide their own.
Yeah, have to provide their own work. It's not such as ISS where we have the teachers send the work down to the ISS room. Students will have to come with work on that day. And we are proposing that it's also supervised by a pool of teachers, that, they sign up to be part of that and then would receive a certain stipend for being part of that pool.
You say that high school and middle school, now, to cut down on the number of teachers needed, would they be able to be put together?
We had a big discussion about that, and we
Yeah.
felt that it wouldn't be appropriate to
Have them together?
possibly
No.
6th graders with 12th graders.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
We would run,
You could have them all in the same building. You could have 2 classrooms. I mean, in essence, you could just open a middle school for this, put high school in room 2 and the middle school in room 3.
Yeah, so that you didn't need to occupy
two
both
teachers
buildings.
anyway.
Yeah.
Right,
So
but I
whether
didn't know if
it's-
it's staffing the building or whatnot was different, but I mean.
our buildings are always open on
Those
Saturdays.
they don't sleep.
That's good. Thank you.
That's it.
And that, if there's any more questions?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh,
Dan?
wait, you had...
One quick
Daniel.
question. Now, what's the, I know you said different steps, like the counsel and the mentor and all, et cetera. What's the guidance counselor's role in it? Because I think this would be, it seems like, just from my angle, it seems like a good time for the guidance counselor to step up and take that kind of mentoring role throughout the student, kind of take them under their belt and say, hey, you screwed up this time, but I want to stay in touch with you and try to fix your behavior for the future.
I think one of the biggest keys, if you look at research and you talk about what keeps kids in school, especially kids who are struggling and are most danger of dropping out, the one thing that's continuously cited is the relationship with at least one adult in the building. So a lot of times that might be the guidance counselor, but it also might be a specific teacher or a specific administrator or someone in the cafeteria or somebody that's going to say good morning to them when they get off the bus every single day. So those are the types of things that we're looking at and that we continue to do. The guidance counselors know. Once something happens with a student, the guidance counselor knows, the house assistant principal at the high school knows, and then anyone else who could possibly have a positive impact on that kid is going to be told. So that, because we know that, hey, it might be another student who comes up to us and says, look, my buddy has this going on. I know he's really close with so-and-so. Can you touch base with them? And that's what you have to do sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree. The guidance counselors are great. They work very hard. They do a lot of work like that.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's great. I mean, basically turning things around, not
Before,
keeping them in school, keeping them in class, keeping the instruction going, trying for positive reinforcement. Great. Thank you.
just saying the athletic department should work hand with you. You shouldn't give a kid a pass on detention on Thursday. He's got football practice. He's got detention, he misses practice, that's between him and his coach. Not anybody else. That should be the priority.
No.
They should know.
And speaking of football, changes in procedures in athletic events. Lori Hott has an opportunity to opine.
Just one note that we should,
Yes.
as a newbie, notice how she brought her cell phone, and we all bring paper.
Thank
Are
you for
reading?
thinking
Are
I'm
you?
young. I appreciate that.
Because I'm texting her what to say.
We couldn't get the earpiece working, so we had to go to...
What's a cell phone? Go.
All right, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Basically, what I would like to do is I'd like to provide you some information and clarification regarding a change in practice that we've implemented during our football season. Basically, what we're doing is we are no longer permitting spectators during the game or after the game to enter onto the track area, to come through the fence and enter onto the track area. This is strictly for safety reasons. Essentially what happens is when people come onto the field, it doesn't allow us to control security as well as we can. It doesn't allow us to control the area from a security standpoint, and it also, by keeping people outside the fence, it's going to minimize interactions between our spectators and our officials, our coaches, and our opposing teams. And I think we can all agree that our very first priority is the safety of our students, our coaches, and our community members. And although I know it wasn't a very popular decision, I do believe that it was a responsible and necessary one, and I appreciate your support in that. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love it.
I love you.
She's in charge of all your stuff.
Aren't you glad we have
An update on lead testing, Bill Blosser.
Thank you for the opportunity to update everyone. As we know, the governor signed the first bill in the United States of America to require mandatory lead testing for every fixture in K-12 buildings in the state of New York. It required all the primary schools to be tested by September 30th. That was 465 outlets. That was completed on September 29th. Then on the secondary schools, the 6 through 12, was another 842 fixtures. Samples were completed yesterday, and bringing us a total of 1,307 samples that were sent to the lab. As you can realize, the testing lab that we use, plus BOCES uses the same lab. They have quite a backlog, so we are waiting for some results for most of our buildings at this time. What we will be doing is doing best practice through some of the guidelines from the EPA. EPA has a program called the 3 Ts. It's called testing, telling, and training. So everything we do will be very transparent, and all that information will be disseminated among the staff and the public. We'll work very closely with all the administrators, building principals, Carol Splendley, and everyone like that to disseminate that information that we need to just to get out about what our results and then what our action plan is, so we can fix problems. I had an estimate from BOCES that about 10% of the fixtures fail, so that if you do 1,300 tests, you're going to have 130 failures. Do you replace a fixture? Do you add a filter? Do you do signage? Do you just turn it off? There's aid for replacing piping, filters, fixtures. There is no aid for if you have to supply water to the students and staff. So if you have to buy bottled water or things like that, that's the one item that's not aidable, because we're expected by law to provide water to our students and staff. So in the next few weeks, we should get all our test results, and we'll be sitting with all the building principals. We'll work very closely with Patrick, and we will make sure that we do what's best for the students and staff in the district.
Bill, how often do we have to go through this testing process?
The testing,
I'm sure it's not a one-time deal.
The records must be kept. We do have a track of what the lab tested, the date it tested, the exact minute it was tested. Those records we have to keep on file. They didn't give a final date how long, but all these tests must be repeated in 5 years. The testing is aidable. I don't know if it's aidable 5 years from now, but the current testing and any testing we did prior to September 6th, and we did a little bit of remediation also, that will also be aidable. So we'll be going after some of that, some of those costs.
Good. We were proactive on that. I'm glad we're going to be reimbursed. I think it makes sense that the law makes so much sense, and I'm also happy that the state is actually stepping up and funding.
For the most part, yes.
For the most part. But, this is important.
Yes.
So thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Is there a way to schedule this out 4 years? Obviously, they just came out with the ruling, so everyone's doing it. So that means everyone's going to have to be doing it in 5 years from now. So maybe we should, slowly start to do it in 4 years and then be ahead of the curve, so we don't have to wait forever for results.
Well, it depends upon the law, I presume.
Yeah. Well, let's use the example that perhaps we have a BOCES service at that time, and if we do, BOCES will probably start sampling 8 to 10 months in advance, so that they didn't have to do their 3,000 or 4,000 tests plus the 1,300 for Monroe Woodbury. So I think they'll phase that in. Otherwise, for our school district, I would recommend probably 3 months in advance instead of trying to do this over a 4 to 5 week period.
All right, part of our 5-year plan.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Superintendent goals update. I presume that's you.
That would be me, yes. This is just a quick update. Everyone should have a sheet that I placed at everyone's table regarding the strategic plan. Yes, it looks like this. It's not color. It's black and white. And part of the plan was for me to discuss who was going to be a member of the Superintendent's Strategic Advisory Planning Committee. And so I have outlined those members to the right. You will see their names. There are two groups that have not been mentioned, and that's a BOE member. I believe that I felt that I needed to have a board member on this, and also a teacher. I did meet with Mr. Hodges, and we agreed that we wanted to have someone at the table. He just wanted to get some time to decide who that person would be. And I also additionally placed a student representative by the name of Megan Mitbo. She had also applied to be a BOE representative, and when I met with her, she was very excited and wanted to be a part of this. So throughout the process, we really want to engage all of our stakeholders, and especially our students. I think they have a lot to offer us, and I think that in planning for the 5 years ahead of us, engaging with them and listening to what their needs are, we can really create a great strategic plan. So the names are listed there. Don and I just spoke because I did want to have someone from the Facilities Committee. I think that's going to be critical. And since Don is the chair, I believe Don will be the BOE member representative. And again, I still have a teacher representative that I need to decide. Any questions? I should say just one more thing, that from last month to this month, we did have Patrick Cahill and Barbara Villas attend a strategic planning 2-day workshop at Columbia University. So at some point, we'll be bringing, probably not tonight, we'll talk a little bit more about what that provided us. But I think everybody's a little tired. So, but again, we're moving in the right direction. Any questions?
And we have a meeting on the 9th of November, but that is a workshop. So it would be the 16th, is that correct?
The board meeting is on the 16th.
And so if you could present then, that would be great.
Yes.
And that makes sense, Don. Thank you for being, what's the term, Daniel? For being voluntold.
See, look at that. We are learning.
Here we go.
Good, I like that.
Thank you. First reading.
We are at the second reading now, right? I mean, I know I spoke about this out.
Yes.
So we should be.
Right. The public's had a lot of opportunity because we've been here for a few days. Now, the motion to approve the first reading of the policy manual updates that Chris enumerated before.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Motion to authorize attendance at the New York State School Boards Association annual meeting during the period October 27th to 29th. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Don, are you going to be there on Saturday morning?
I am. It depends on what time they vote. Do we know?
They started the first thing, and then if you have to leave, you have to leave.
Good. Yeah, I'll be there.
Motion to appoint Donald Beeler as voting delegate for the New York State School Boards Association annual meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
We have a discussion. Basically, we've all had an opportunity to take a look, either online through the link, the voting propositions for the NYSBA annual meeting. There were a couple that have not been recommended, but that might be recommended, and that would be Proposition 20 and Proposition 23. Anthony has indicated that basically those would be okay by him. If they came up for a vote, you might want to take a look at that. This authorization to you puts you in charge of how you want to vote. It puts Don Beeler in charge of your best judgment. It's a little frightening to me, Don, but that's all right.
You should be afraid.
Yes, run away, run away. In any case, those are two propositions that if they rise to the level of a vote, you want to take a close look at.
Okay.
All right, and thank you for doing that. We have a motion to approve the annual professional performance review hardship waiver resolution. Do I need to read all of this?
No.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Motion to approve the amended Rehabilitation Act, Section 504, coordinator appointed to the Directors of Special Education, Eric Ulau and Karen Jordan.
Second.
There's been a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Motion to abolish positions and establish positions of
Motion.
and of non-instructional to rescind the appointment of a non-instructional employee. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. We have done the personnel
That's correct. And the business and
and the business and
sorry.
and the business and financial. Recommendation, motion to approve the arrangements of the recommended placements made by the Committee on Special Education at their regular meetings, and the recommendations of placements by the Committee on Special Education. It's the same thing.
It's the same.
Moved,
Seconded.
seconded, discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And recommendation on the Committee on Preschool Special Education.
Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor? Reports on, by the board and central administration. You're all going to have a chance to speak tonight, except for Eric. Michael.
I got to attend a bunch of football games. Actually won the 50-50 raffle at one until my wife told me I was not allowed to keep it.
The football club thanks you.
And a lot of girls soccer games. Both teams, very exciting years so far. Continued success, hopefully. And then I also attended the faculty and friends concert and it was a very nice job. It was new to me. I'd never been before. Very talented. It was very enjoyable.
Chris?
I want to thank all the presentators. Eric, thank you. And everyone else who did a great job. I want to just say good luck to all the fall sports. The football team this weekend is playing their second round of playoffs. I'll give them good luck. I also won the 50-50 early in the season.
It's fixed.
So I would say when you're bored, better stop buying tickets because it seems to be a trend.
All right, Don?
I just wanted to welcome Dan to the board. It's great to have him on board. And that's it for me tonight. Next.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Yeah, I would like to welcome Dan. It's a pleasure to have you here. And I would also like to thank all the presenters. And I would like to remind everyone, no matter who you're voting for, please get out and vote.
Yes.
Yeah, good point.
Dan, that we sort of, as you can tell, we go around the table.
And you're next.
And you're next.
I'd like to thank the Board of Education and Ms. Rodriguez for appointing me to this position. And I promise I'll do my best to get voluntold for every committee possible. Get student voice to make sure that it's very well heard by everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Leah?
Welcome Dan to the table and wish everybody a good night.
Thank you. Bargo?
Welcome, Dan. Can't wait to work with you in Technology Committee. That will be fun.
Let's go.
Last Saturday, I attended Faculty and Friends recital. Mrs. Reagan did a very good job, and it was really amazing to see the talent we have.
Right, thank you. Patrick? No, Eric?
Congrats to Dan. Matt mentioned how it's difficult knowing kids at the elementary level and disciplining them at the secondary level after many years. It's equally as rewarding knowing a student from the elementary level and watching him succeed succeed in great ways, and knowing it's just the beginning. Dan is awesome, very well deserved. I'm exceptionally proud of you. Good job. Thank you to everybody who contributed to tonight's presentation. It is definitely not a one-man show. Everybody had a lot to say about all of the elements that went into the presentation. Congrats to our athletic teams. Attended the Mid-Hudson School Study Awards ceremony on October 13th. Congratulations to Jim Hall, who represented Monroe Woodbury as a community member. Lisa Shina, who's a high school social worker who was acknowledged for her district service, and Lisa Student, who is my secretary, who was outstanding, who was recognized as support staff. And just a reminder, November Health is Health and Wellness and DLC meetings here at the Ed Center. I encourage everybody to attend, please.
Thank you, Eric. Patrick?
I'd just like to welcome Dan also. Great job tonight. And just congratulate everyone who's appointed this evening.
All right.
I definitely want to congratulate Dan and welcome you aboard. I think it's awesome that we're having a student, and you've already brought to the table some ideas, and I know I appreciate it, and it's going to be a good year. I want to congratulate also the people who got appointed positions, thank the presenters. October 18th, I was at the high school where Mr. Castro was the chairperson. We had a lot of stakeholders there. We're forming a coalition for the substance abuse that's going on in the community and in the district. And we're going to have, again, an upcoming forum, which will be collaborated with the Monroe Police. I just got an email from them. We're having a monthly meeting. There are 4 students on this panel, which is really awesome as well. I want to congratulate Mr. Barone for getting the ballerina. I'm very upset that we didn't have a dress rehearsal today. I was thinking that maybe you were going to come with your outfit. You're a good sport. You're a good sport.
We're tired.
You're a good sport.
That's why I had to get out of that school.
That's right. I'm looking forward to the presentation. They're having the drama Monroe Peace Theater this Friday night and Saturday night with, I believe, 2 students are directing 4 different plays. What else? I think that's about it. And have a good night.
Thank you. Stacy?
I want to say welcome to Daniel also. I think it's great to have him here. And congratulations to all the appointees. I have a personal note that I will miss Mr. Peterson very much at Pine Tree, and so will my daughter Madeline, as he has been her expand teacher, but I wish him the best. And same thing, lots of football, lots of great activities. I want to say that I attended my first college fair at the high school, and it was overwhelming, but it was also very informative, so I thank the high school and all of the guidance staff for that. Have a good night.
Thank you. Anthony?
Welcome to Daniel. We're looking forward to a good year working with you. As Lorraine said, you've already brought a lot to this committee, and we're looking forward to more of that. Thanks to all the presenters. Congratulations to all the new people in their new positions. I attended a few open houses. Smith Clove with Mr. Berger, North Main with Joe, and the middle school with Mr. Cass. They all put on great shows and welcomed the students and parents back with their usual aplomb. And then I went to a couple of football games, was at the second half of the Monroe-Woodbury-Washingtonville first game, where we came through in the end, and looking forward to this weekend's game. Go Crusaders, and have a good night.
Thank you. Dan?
Glad to have Dan with us. Taking shots at Eric right away. Perfect. He's fitting in. I got to attend the Manhattan College Invitational. Literally thousands of kids from, down south and across a lot of the Northeast for cross country. And went to the Faculty and Friends concert last Saturday night. Thank you to Ms. Reagan, Music Boosters. Outstanding job. Such talented people we have working in the district. And other than that, happy Halloween.
Welcome, Dan. I want to welcome Nate and Andre. Having you move up into administration speaks about the staff that we have in our district and the pool of teachers and work. I don't know, is Andre here?
I sent him home, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Bill. So I guess I won't talk about him, but it does speak volumes about what we think about our teachers. You know, today's event is really about democracy and people being able to voice their opinion even if they're unhappy with us, and but it doesn't speak to what this board or I think about these teachers. They're amazing teachers. You were one of them. You are now an administrator, and I'm very proud that you've joined us. Thank you. I also want to thank all the presenters. I think you did an excellent job. It was a very long night, but I think that we got a lot covered.
Yep.
And it's not even 9:30, so we still have some time. I also want to speak a little bit about the use of the district logo. Our logo belongs to the school district. If we've been informed by our attorneys that when someone else takes our logo and places it either on a Facebook page or on something else, that's a misrepresentation of the school district. So that needs to be known by the community and understood. Our district logo represents Monroe Woodbury. If you take our logo and put it somewhere else that's not Monroe Woodbury, there's a belief that that is Monroe Woodbury, and we have to be very careful over that. So I just want to let the community know that if you are using the district logo and you have not gotten permission from the district, you may receive a letter from us asking you to please remove the logo from whatever it is that you have. It's just what we've been advised by our attorneys. I do want to just say one more thing about football. I've learned a lot about football in the last month.
The ball is not round.
The ball is not round, but honestly, I have to thank Lori because she's been very patient with me. But there is a game on Saturday. It's a playoff game. I'm looking at it, right? It's a playoff game on Saturday at 7 o'clock don't tell me, at Middletown against Washingtonville. And we've already beat them how many times? Oh, just once, okay. But we've already beat them once, so I'm excited about beating them again. And I should also say that our football team they're not only playing well on the field, but they are representing the district well off the field, and that's equally as important. So I am very impressed with the coach and with Ms. Hawk and the students especially. So thank you.
We've appointed Dan Ezrati as board liaison to the Sousa Scholarship Committee. He was voluntold
Yes.
about that. So thank you for stepping up.
Not you.
And being, I just look to you now for affirmation on everything. All right? We welcome you, but you have to watch out that your questions are not so much more intelligent than the rest of us. It will become embarrassing, all right? So just watch that. Thank you, everybody, the presenters, and thank the teachers for coming out and representing themselves as you said, democracy in action. And we have disagreements, but we'll get there, and we're all a team. That's it, I think. Motion to adjourn? Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.